There we go.
Welcome to All Politics Are Local, America's
Number
number one
one.
political hip hop radio talk show. We are here for another week, and we are very happy to be here for another week. We have our today is a special show. We are dedicating the entire show to early voting. People need to vote early, vote early, vote early, because voting early is just incredibly important in so many different ways. And we are so glad to have our assistant, the assistant clerk for Essex County here, Garnett Hall. And she's going to talk to us about like early voting, some things that are real important about it. We're also going to be joined by some other people shortly that are also going to be talking about early voting and how important that is. I early voted myself, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredible, right? Yes, and we also have Reverend Louise Scott Roundtree that's going to join us as well because she has an event that she is going to do as well. So we're starting off so just as a quick rundown for the show, we are starting off early voting, and we're going to be coming back to early voting throughout the entire program. At 6:30, we're going to have Amir Samuel Malone on talking about how to develop a logistics business, and he's going to break that down. It's really talking about trucking and all the complexities of that, and the importance of Black businesses. We have Professor Johanna Fernandez on at 7:15 talking about Mumia Abdul-Jabal and updates with that, and a conversation about political prisoners. We often don't talk about enough about that we even have political prisoners in the United States, but we're going to be talking about that tonight as well. We have Larry Hamm on at 8 talking about his activism recently for a strong civilian review board where he walked from Newark to Trenton. That's coming up at 8 o'clock. And of course, at 8:30, we're going to have DJ Rhino talking about the state of hip hop and bringing all the latest. So we have a good show.
Yes.
Fully loaded
tonight.
Yes.
So thank you for coming on, and Donna, we have Donna here as well. So we have a full house now. Reverend Roundtree was on here for just a second, and then came off again. So we're going to get her back. But Miss Hall,
yes,
how are you? Thank you for coming here. Early voting is amazing.
Thank you for having me.
So, how does early voting work for people who aren't there? Like, if you're in Newark, how do you?
Well, Jonathan. Well, Jonathan, before we, all right.
Donna, you just came out again.
Can
all
I
right,
jump
yeah, we can't hear you. You're going in and out. If you leave and just try to fix the connection and come back in. So, Ms. Hall, early voting, talk to us about it.
Okay. It's a very important time. We're down into the stretch right now, and there is 3 different ways
Right,
that you can actually.
Quick before she starts.
Yes.
Donna, you are going in and out. You have to fix your connection because we can't hear you.
I don't think she could hear us.
Yeah,
Donna,
let her go. Let her go because we can't hear you.
Jonathan?
Yes, Donna, your connection is bad.
Oh, here. I just wanted Miss Hall to let everybody know who.
All right, so Ms. Hall, can you introduce yourself and then tell us?
Okay. My name is Garnett Hall, and I am the Deputy Clerk for Essex County, located in Newark, New Jersey. I am located in the beautiful new building in downtown Newark, 495 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Justice Building. Just to give you a little background, this building was just opened in about August. It is the only building in the country dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So at first we hear that and we say, oh, that's great. Then you say, wait, stop. The only one? So it is my privilege to be broadcasting from this building, probably one of the fewer or first of broadcasts from this building. And I am here tonight to discuss with you different ways that you can vote. There are 3 different ways that you can vote at this point. We call it early voting, but we better say it's late voting because there's only a few days left before Election Day. So let's see, what are my options? My options is to vote by mail. but I would have to have done some preparation in order to have that ballot in my hand at this point. So about 6 weeks ago, we put out an application, or you were able to file an application, and I did have an application with me, but it's called a vote by mail application. And you would need to fill this out and mail this into our location so that we could verify your signature, verify that you're a registered voter, and get that ballot in your hand. Now, there are deadlines for this, so don't worry about it. If you didn't do vote by mail and you'd like to do it for the next election, now is the time to get this form, send it out, and we'll get you ready for the next mailing of vote by mail. Now, the big confusion came is when Governor put out a bill or executive order that every person should receive a vote by mail because we had COVID and it was a pandemic. So every single person automatically received a vote by mail. But in the top corner, if you checked what your desire was to move forward, it asked you a couple of questions. Do you want all future to be vote by mail? Did you want just that election to be vote by mail? And you would have to make a choice. If you checked all elections, you would have automatically got a ballot. If you did not check all elections, then they put you back in the roster when you will be able to go to the polls and place your vote. Now, the reason why we do that is all about access. You control your vote, and you control your access. So unless you said, I do not want to receive vote by mails, you're going to get one during that election. But on this one, you would have had to make the decision. So that is one way that we would do vote by mail.
So just to be clear, right? The if you haven't already done vote by mail, not really relevant right now, right?
It is not.
Not for
the
this.
Deadline has passed on October 26th to be able to put in an application to get a vote by mail.
All right. So again, we're not talking about vote by mail right now. Only in that vote by mail, it already happened. If you already know, you know. If you did it, it's done. But right now, we got something wonderful for the last weekend of voting.
Yes.
Early voting.
But what I want you to also know that up until the 26th of October, you could have came to this location, filled out a vote by mail application, and you would have been handed a ballot. So I don't want you to forget that for the next election.
Right, but
Just watch the deadlines.
Right, I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to confuse the audience, right? Because if you were thinking about voting by mail in this election and you don't already have your ballot, it's too late to vote by mail, but you can early vote. I voted in person yesterday.
Yes.
To Essex County, and I walked in, and there were some nice people there, and they treated me well, and I sat down and I voted. I filled it out, put it in a voting machine, and it's not Tuesday. It's not even Monday. Wasn't even Friday. It was Wednesday, right? Wednesday before. Well, actually, it was Thursday. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
It was Thursday before the election.
Now, what hours? What hours are the early voting? 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So hear that. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday, which would be tonight, Saturday, tomorrow. But on Sunday, they stop at 6. So 10 a.m. to 6 on Sunday.
So on Sunday, they could do souls to the polls.
Yes.
So after church, everybody could be like, hey, let's go vote.
Yes, that is correct.
So really, this is great. And 10 o'clock, that means you could be out late. That means you could be hanging out. And you'd be like, what you going to do? We're going to go out to, you could have a vote date, right? You could be like, let's get some dinner. And after the dinner, we can vote.
You are amped up tonight.
Hey, it's a great thing, right? We are voting right now. Now when we're talking, now what are the locations? There are locations in every there are multiple
not in every
city.
Okay, there is a list, so I would have to know what area you're in, but there is a list of locations for you to do the in-person early voting. Now, what they tried to do, let me just explain a little bit. What they tried to do was to put locations where people from different towns can share that location and go to early voting, okay? So we have a location, and we're talking to most of the audiences that are in East Orange. It's at City Hall Plaza, Irvington, Municipal Plazax, 1 Civic Square, here at West Market, Essex County Complex.
That's where I voted.
Yeah, right.
I was in and out in 15 minutes. It was wonderful. I walked in, I filled it out, I went out, and it was a nice new complex, nice rooms. It's right in that Essex County parking lot building that has these rooms in it. It was very, very nice.
And let me just tell you a couple of more in Newark, because, we travel, I always say, even though it's orange, everything's local. So we have it at the Cherry Blossom Welcome Center where Obama was, right? Wasn't Obama there this weekend?
Okay.
Wake Park Community Center, West Side Park Community Center. And I think those are the ones mostly in this area, but also in West Orange. Everybody knows it as Turtleback Zoo, but it's actually in the Education Building at the South Mountain Recreation Complex on Northfield Avenue, where we all go for Turtleback Zoo. So those are the locations that this is our first time in the state of New Jersey doing early voting. And I think this will be expanding, but we had to have control, but access.
So this is the first time we've done this in New Jersey.
This is the first time in New Jersey that all right. So 3 or 4 years ago, we always lose a year with the pandemic. I did the trial for early voting out of West Orange at the Turtleback Zoo location. We did it within a 2-week period, and it was called something like in-person vote by mail. So you walked up to me with your ballot, and I was able to process that vote through a 2-week project, the pilot program. So This is the first official program that is managed by the county to provide access for people to vote.
Cool. And so this is the first time you could just walk stroll to the poll, right? Because I just strolled to the poll. I just took a stroll on my lunch break, and I strolled to the polls, 4 blocks from where I work, maybe 3. I got there in like 5 minutes, voted, strolled back. Now, why is it so important that people vote?
It's so important for people to vote because that's your voice. If you do not speak up, if you do not put the right people in place, and I'm talking about completely going across a line or supporting the governor all the way down to your local township committee, board of education people, we need all of those people in place in order to get what you need to improve the quality of life or to protect your voting rights and to protect your voice. So I encourage everybody to understand the importance of voting is because without the vote, we can go backwards. We'd like to go forward. We'd like to keep all of our rights intact.
And Zai, can you speak to the importance of voting? Because I think that you have a perspective that it's not even as important who you vote for, but that you vote.
It's the ballot of the bullet. From my perspective, I come out of the radical tradition, and that's that side of our folks that went that extra mile to see to it that we got the right to vote. Folks do not realize that the whole notion of the Black Panther Party started in the South. Lowndes County Freedom Organization, Lowndes County, Alabama, armed formation that broke away from the Democratic Party, right, over the right to vote. And then to all of my young heads who are brittled with the cynicism of these times, be careful. Be very careful. If this thing wasn't important, even though it's not perfect in its expression, if it wasn't important, these crazy folks would not be trying to take it from you.
Right.
Mm.
Right?
Good point.
And they are still actively trying to take it from you. January 6th was about you, me.
What do you mean by that? January 6th was
Our
about
ballot. What you like to affectionately call the White Riot.
the White Riot of 2021.
The attack on the Congress by a mob of folks who had presidential sanction in their minds to overturn an election in live, living color, in front of the entire world's face, expecting to be able to do it with impunity.
Mm.
It was about our people having access to the ballot and our people making the difference in that particular election. So, we got to be careful about sitting stuff out when it's on the line. because it is indeed on the line. There's a serious uh, 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 segment of this country, almost half of it, that is willing to take this country backwards and willing to do some things beyond the pale of staying between the lines of what the law says and doing it. And we may have to do some other kind of training beyond being civically engaged in order to protect those rights. If we had to use arms to defend our right to vote and to make it happen back in the mid 60s, we may have to do that once again if we're not careful. So I'm gonna make it plain like that. Now I have to be the bearer of bad bureaucratic news also. I didn't get no form in the mail to do that. I was looking for it, and I'm working two jobs now, so I couldn't go down to the office and do what I needed to do, to follow up on that, right? I did get my sample ballot, and it's the first sample ballot I got in like several years, and that's a couple of years ago. I went down and fussed and cussed at them about did not even getting my sample ballots for years, and they had me listed and registered at my old PO box that I had let go 20 years ago. So we we still got to work on some things in terms of our local offices. No reflection on you, my dear queen. And I
No, and I
appreciate
can tell you what happened. I follow exactly what you're saying. Remember a moment ago when I said the reason why you got it at your old PO box might be because the governor said every single person registered should receive a vote by mail during the pandemic. So what do you think that they had to do? They had to run the entire roster. So yes, and just to let you know, you could have went online and filled out the application. We know that people work. We know how important time is. I wish you had to give me a call. I had this show a little bit before.
I didn't know who you was, queen.
I could have helped you, and I'm ready to help everyone.
Well, listen, let me ask a different question, Jonathan, because this is wonderful, right? I mean, and what I'm saying is that, I met a brother today who was an actual elector, right? We think of, the electoral votes, those are real people. I met a brother today who's an actual elector, right? Right? I know the great Buster Soros, who was our Secretary of State some years ago.
He started me in my
came to my aid when I was a young man.
That's how I started
some years ago. But the whole notion of our, protecting our rights is a whole process. I mean, I want you to tell your story, Sister Garnett, and how you got to exactly where you are, right? So, folks, young folks, see this program is based out of Rutgers, Newark.
Right? I would love to.
This story is based out of Rutgers, Newark. So we want young folks to hear the story on how they could perhaps one day be in the driver's seat of overseeing people's rights to vote.
So I started with the Urban League. Remember that name? I was
yes, of course.
10, 12 years old. They had a government program, that paid me to go do my homework and to get tutored every day after school. We got a little change in our pocket, but what it was doing, which we didn't understand, it was priming us. It was preparing us for our life ahead and what they needed to do, and which made me get to this position that I'm in today. I've been an activist since 12 years old. So I started with Urban League, and guess who was there? Buster Soros. Buster Soros, I'm from Montclair. Buster Soros started with me. He introduced me to what? Operation Push, Jesse Jackson. We went through that route. I met Jesse Jackson. I was the secretary for New Jersey of Operation Push. So I was fortunate enough to have elders that put us in these programs. But you know what the big difference is? We listened, and we didn't have a second option. When they say you're going to this meeting and you're going to do this, we went. And I don't think the younger people today do that. I laughed with my girlfriends. We said, it was your grandmother who made us go. But you know what? We never had to go. But we respected it. If her grandmother said we had to go to this meeting, we went to the meeting.
That's right. I know that's right.
So I'm presently the vice chair of the Democratic Party in Maplewood, and I've been since about 2007 or so. And then I had the opportunity to work with Leroy Jones and the Democratic Party. I attended, I listened, I learned, I activated everything that they told me to do. And when the opportunity came up, guess what they did? They tapped me on the shoulder and said, we need you. And I was ready to go. And I've been in this position for 4 years. So I just said, make a plan and just keep executing it. Every time they need something, I was there. I go to the marches. But I love it. It's not work for me. I'm doing it for my people.
Great story. Great story. Yeah.
And Deputy Clerk Garnett, I think the most important thing that you said is that when they asked you to go, you were ready to go. You didn't have to get ready. You were ready to go.
Yes.
So that's the most important thing I think you said. And of everything you said, that, you know, all your preparation, when the time came for you to get that tap on the shoulder, you was like, I'm ready.
That's the key. You're right, Donna. That is exactly the key, the way I live my life. Be prepared. When the opportunity comes, you can. If I wasn't prepared, I wouldn't have the opportunity.
And I want to go back because I had computer problems in the beginning, and I know you, Jonathan, started off talking about the early vote, which is new to us in the way that we're doing, I believe, if I'm saying it right. But I also want to talk about the ballot. There are 2 public questions on the ballot. Have you had an opportunity to speak about the public questions? Because oftentimes people are not prepared to go in for that public question.
No, raise it,
or
Donna.
they haven't studied the issues to make them vote yay or nay on a public
Right.
question.
Those were the gambling questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Understand that each district has a different question. I can talk about Maplewood. I don't know what your questions are in the other towns.
Oh, okay. I thought this was a statewide question.
Excuse me?
I thought the gambling questions were statewide.
Oh, you're talking about the gambling questions. I'm so hot on my question that's on the ballot in Maplewood.
Okay.
Okay, so issue. Don't give me an opportunity to talk.
Okay, so let's do that, Ms. Hall. Let's do that because that is true. Let's talk about the statewide question. And to your point, oftentimes there are specific questions to your district. So let's do the statewide first and then go to district questions.
Okay. So you should really take a look at those questions and read them. And, you know, because people know I'm involved, many times people are going to call you and ask you to explain it. So I think it's very important for you to look at those questions. And, you know, what many people do when they don't understand the question is they don't vote at all, which is also going to change the vote.
When I looked at the question, I looked at the 2 gambling questions. And they just sat wrong with me.
Let me simplify. So the first one is we can bet on you. The first one is now should we be able to bet on college sports? Yes and no. Is that did I simplify?
Yeah, that was the way I read it, right?
Okay.
Betting on college sports, and the other one was private organizations.
Let's go one. Yeah, let's go one by one. So you said you felt no that you should. I don't know what you said. So how did that sit with you about betting on college sports?
It just seemed like exploiting poor people more and making gambling more. And betting on college sports, so more people who have gambling problems and addictions get sucked in. So I'm like, no. Now, there might be other sides to it, right? Like in terms of taking money away from organized crime. People bet on it anyway. There's betting all over. Why not New Jersey make some money off of it? But I just think that gambling, the way it works, especially betting on college sports, the way it's happening, it's going to take a lot of money away from poor people. And there was nothing inside of the referendum that said where the money would go.
So the simple is so the simple is now you'll be able to bet or not be able to bet on college sports. So the second one is raffles. So let's say all politics are local. We have a dinner. We can do a raffle at this dinner, and the proceeds go to specific things. And maybe it's a 50-50. So 50% goes to whoever wins the raffle and 50% goes to other things that are annotated or what that money could be used for. Now they're saying that money can also be used. They're going to expand what it could be used for to say it could be used to help the organization specifically. And I don't believe it allowed that in the past. Am I right, Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan, where were you at with that one?
Well, I didn't really fully understand that. I thought people could already do raffles, right?
You can do raffles again. It's just how the money is, what you can spend, what the money can be used for. So now
I thought you could spend raffles on your I thought organizations already did raffles and they spent that money on their organizations.
But they have to have a permit and a license to do it. At our 40th reunion, we had to trample that. Are we going to, get a permit? Or if we're going to have a raffle, you got to have a permit. So
yeah, I mean, what's wrong with getting a permit to do a raffle?
Well, here's the thing. Let's say you're going to do the permit and it's the event is Friday and you're like, darn it, we forgot the raffles. There's a whole process. And I know in the city of Orange, it has to go before the municipal council. So sometimes it's a it's a process to get the permit and things like that. That oftentimes it's an afterthought and not so much a forethought.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So yeah, so in terms of those, I thought that was interesting. But
trouble connecting.
But I think the
I'll
most
keep
important
trying.
thing is the most important thing I think about all this is that we're going to get more people voting, right?
Okay.
I know we're getting ready to wrap up with this particular.
But just real quick, I just wanted to, because oftentimes people get confused, and then there are local municipal questions. And just you don't have to speak. I mean, you can speak briefly about Maplewood, but just real quick. But there are local questions, and that's why you have to pay attention to your ballot.
And I think really it's more not what the question is, but there is a question. When we have an election, we need people to get out to the polls. They're very lackadaisical. If there was a question on the ballot that they felt passionate about, it brings the voters out. So whatever the issue is, let's do something to bring the voters out.
Yeah, because I think that the bottom line is, if people don't vote, our communities are less protected. People look at the percentage of people who vote in our community all the time. And when voter turnout's low, I really do believe that the state would not have taken over Newark Public Schools for 20 years if we had very high rates of voter turnout. I think that when you have high rates of voter turnout, people are less likely to go, we can cut funding to your schools. Mm-hmm. Right now, part of the what's at stake, and this is true in every governor's race, is public funding for schools. I'm a public school teacher, and one of the things that's going to happen is, depending on who wins, the school funding formula will be either changed one way or the other. And I remember when certain people get elected, then there are always budget shortfalls. There's always has to be massive budget cuts. Other people get elected, there's money in Newark for our public schools so that we could have the programs that we need to have without facing massive budget cuts. So I think that there are things that I think that whenever you have large groups of people who do not vote, you make your community more vulnerable. That's why I think that this whole thing about being open this weekend and being able to just come in and vote is so amazing.
So before we go, I don't want to miss the drop boxes. We talked about the early voting. We talked about, yay, let's go. But also don't forget about the drop boxes. Please do not put your vote by mail in the mail at this point. You must put it in a drop box. And you can put it in any drop box throughout the county, throughout Essex County. So if you're out shopping and you have your ballot with you and you see a designated drop box, put it in there. It's picked up every night and brought back down to this facility. So that's a very important point that I wanted to make sure people understood.
Now, Ms. Hall, as we get ready to close out, we have a question that we ask. This is a hip hop political show.
Well, you might have a chance for one more question as well. Beside that, because our next guest is not here yet. So if you want to ask another question, ask away.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Well, Ms. Hall,
let me just recap everything. How about that?
I wanted to give you an
okay.
opportunity to expand on the local question if you wanted to take that time because you wanted to.
No.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
I'm just passionate. So
okay, go ahead.
All right. So what we talked about tonight, vote by mail ballots. If you have your vote by mail ballots, put it in the vote by mail designated boxes that are located throughout the county in Belleville, Bloomfield, Caldwell, Cedar Grove, East Orange City Hall, Essex Fells, Fairfield, Glen Ridge, Irvington, near us, Livingston, Maplewood, Milburn, Montclair, North Caldwell, Newark, and at the Newark locations, City Hall, Hall of Records here at 465, Veterans Courthouse, 50 West Market Street, Rutgers University, 225 University Avenue, 184 Central Avenue is the New Jersey Institute of Technology. So, and Nutley, and and here's Orange. We actually have it in Orange at 29 Park Street.
At the Belleville Justice Complex.
Law and Justice Complex.
Right.
We have it in South Orange at the Firehouse on number 56.
And that's great. So we know that all these locations are also published. We do have it is time for that last question.
Okay. So, Deputy Clerk Hall, again, this is a hip hop political show. And the question I want to ask you, what hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to, or is your favorite artist? Is somebody you could be listening to this week?
No,
or
wait a minute. I have to tell you, I'm the one that comes through the parking lot with the music going, and I love it all. And not many people my age or so. I constantly listen to everything, and I can sing it if you want to. And I came in one day, and they laugh at me. They said, "You're the youngest old person I ever seen in my life."
So, who was the artist? Did you give an artist?
I'm trying to think who was it. I just listened to all of it. I really do.
Okay. And I wonder when I first
said my granddaughter's name is Aubrey, right? And so I didn't even realize that my daughter was naming Aubrey. Aubrey, what is it? Audrey? No, Aubrey, Drake's name. You know what I mean? So I love the entire gambit of music. Okay. It's not just, and today I was looking, Fetty is in jail. What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
They laugh at me. Fetty laughed at, so I try to keep up on it all only because it brings me pleasure, not for any other reason.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hall. But what I want to also say in closing is that you remind me of Congresswoman Yvette Clarke.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like her. So thank you.
And I'm here to support. I'm going to close. I know you're going to go, but all the things that you said tonight is what I'm about. So if there's something that I could do to be included in, please reach out and I'll be glad to participate.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming on during this segment. We're getting ready to go to the next segment, but that early voting stuff is so incredibly important. And we're glad that you were able to come on and discuss it.
Thank you so much.
Letter R, local.
Hey, how are you? Mr. Amir Samuels. It is great to have you on the show right now. It is, I know that we talked just briefly, and you made just an impressive showing at the men's meeting yesterday. And when we talked briefly, but you actually educated me on not just the importance of Black businesses, but something even more important is how to start one, how to think about it, and how to go into it in a very methodical, logical way. And because what you're talking about is you have a logistics company. Yes. And you founded a logistics company. And I didn't know what a logistics company was. I was like, logistics? What is that?
Yes.
Well, we had a conversation about 5 minutes and you're just breaking it down in terms of what it is, what it isn't. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. So can you give us some background on yourself and how you got into logistics? And then tell us, what is that?
Okay. Well, I was trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I went to school for entrepreneurial studies. I majored in business at Norfolk State University. And so I had always had an eye for entrepreneurship, and I always knew that that's something that I wanted. Honestly, it came from my mom. My mom worked so hard. My mother worked for Lucent Technologies, and she would work from 9 to 5, get off of work at 5 o'clock in Whippany, New Jersey, drive down to the airport and work for Federal Express. She had half an hour to eat, half an hour to get to work, would work from 6 to 12 o'clock at night. And I realized how much it took away from my youth, because 9 to 5, my whole youth, my mother would be at work, then she would go to a second job from 6 to 12. So I only really saw her on the weekends. And I saw from a very young age, I knew that that's not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to work my way through my life. So I always had a zeal and an affinity for entrepreneurship. So when I went to college, of course, I majored in business, and it was the first HBCU to offer entrepreneurship program. And so I jumped at the idea of it. When I got out of college, I was trying to think of what I wanted to do. I always liked real estate. I wanted to trade. I wanted to do logistics. I had a whole bunch of, businesses about solving problems. What is a problem, that most people have, or a void that isn't filled? And so I had a list of businesses that I wanted to do. But what I saw was that logistics was the one that had the least startup. It didn't take that much capital to actually start a logistics company. And I had a friend that was able to mentor me. He told me, come see bring your pen and your pad. I'm going to teach you a little bit about logistics. And so that's really how I got into logistics, because it had the least amount of startup money, and it had the potential to make enough money to be able to basically give me the startup money for all of the other businesses, entrepreneurial ideas that I had.
So this whole thing about being an entrepreneur, what made you think about being an entrepreneur to begin with?
Again, my mother being so overworked, working basically 9 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night. I didn't, we lived kind of comfortably after some time, but I didn't really I didn't think that was a good quality of life. That's not something that I wanted to do.
So Amir, to be real simple, you wanted your mommy. You didn't want the money. You wanted your mommy.
Mom.
You wanted mommy.
Basketball, baseball, and football.
That's
and
right.
I don't think my mother's ever been to any of my games when I was young. So that affected me.
And I'm honest, just going, and I'll put a little pause in it. I'm not going to go ahead, because I always say that I always watch little boys look up in the stands, and they look for somebody from the family to be there. So it's good that you say that. That's all I'm saying.
And I mean, outside of business, the effects of it, I felt the effects of it, because I honestly believe that whoever spends the most time around a child is going to have the most influence over them. And this is why when the decisions that I made in my young adulthood didn't match the things that my mother taught me within my home, I was able to understand it firsthand, because I was more influenced by the neighborhood that I was raised in as opposed to my mother, because I was spending more time with those people than I were with my mom.
So you was like an 80-year-old, 8-year-old.
Yes. So for those reasons, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And even now, as I'm learning, as I'm failing forward, I try to embark upon business opportunities that are going to give me more time as opposed to more money. And I like to choose the people that I'm going to have the opportunity to work with, as opposed to choosing, it's not about the bag necessarily. It's more about the relationships that I get to form. Because at the end of the day, after you make a business decision, Biggs Burke said, after you make the business decision, you're going to have to interact with those individuals. Who do you want to actually invite to your house? Who do you want to spend time with? The energy that you're going to experience. I want it to be positive and productive people that I choose to be around. And entrepreneurship allows me to choose the environment of individuals. That's one of the benefits of it as well.
Now, you talked about time, though, right? And most entrepreneurs I know, they don't have time, right? They're working just as hard as people who have they have to work 2 jobs, right? Because if they don't eat, if they don't make money, they don't eat. So how do you balance that? Were you able to do that when you were starting off, when you're starting your business? Because you make it sound like it's a lot of, you can choose your hours, but was it always like that? When you were when you were building your business, were there times where you just weren't around?
That's a great point. They say that the entrepreneur is the only individual that stops working 40 hours so they can work 80 hours. The reality of it is, at the beginning, you're going to have to put in a lot of hours until you're able to organize and put some structure to the business. And then you can, basically delegate the work to other individuals. Because in reality, if you can't hire a manager to do it, then you really don't have a business. You just have a job.
Can you explain that? Break that down. I think that was very important.
Whatever you have to the first step is you want to look at the tasks that you actually have to do for your business, and then you just have to hire somebody that's going to be able to do those tasks.
So you're talking about the idea that you have has to be a revenue generating idea, and you have to measure whether your idea is good or not by whether you can generate enough revenue to hire a manager.
Yes, and it takes some time. It's not something I definitely. There were times where it was more than 80 hours a week. So I wouldn't say that a person is just going to jump into entrepreneurship and at the beginning it's going to be something easy. You're going to end up working more hours. You're going to be working around the clock at the beginning.
So what was it like at the beginning? Tell me about when you just had a truck and a van.
Yeah, at the beginning, I was on the truck. I was the business. I started off with the truck. The truck only cost me about $1,500 to $2,500, about $1,200 or $1,500. I formulated my business. That would be step one. After I formed the business entity, I got a tax ID number, which that's actually creating it as. Then of course you open up a business bank account. After that, you apply for your MC and your DOT number. That turns your business entity into an actual trucking company. But your trucking company isn't active until the FMCSA, that's the government authority, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. They're going to tell you when after you finish filing all of the paperwork with them, they're going to tell you how much the type of business that you want to establish, what kind of insurance is required for it. You pay the insurance. The insurance isn't going to be too much. After you pay the insurance, now you have and 30 days go by, you have an active trucking company. And now you can pretty much go. That's how simple. It's really that simple. 1, 2, 3. You open up a business.
It's simple, but you have to do the paperwork.
Yeah, but it's not that hard. Or you can always pay people to do it as well. $100 to $200 to pay somebody to do the application. We actually have people that do the application for people. We assist individuals in establishing their companies. Again, we formed between 30 and 40 companies last year, and that ended up coming on to work for us. So, the paperwork is a lot more simple than you would imagine it is. And after those 3 steps, you have a trucking company.
Now you had your trucking company, but you're like, at first, how was it? Like, you got your business, you did your paperwork, first day of business, that first week, that first month, how was it? And when did it change?
Well, there's been a lot of turning points, to be honest with you. At the very beginning, I started off doing, my friend that taught me how to do logistics, he was working for Staples. He had a daily account where he would do deliveries, office supply deliveries. So I started off, I took my business credentials, my MC and DOT number to Staples in Jersey City, and they gave me a contract. I started off as a floater. Actually, I didn't even have a route. So whatever route had an overflow of work, or if somebody was sick or got hurt or wasn't able to work, then I would be their fill-in. So I didn't even get to memorize a route because I had to work just about every route. But in doing so, it made me proficient where I was able to do all of the routes in the whole warehouse. So that I benefited from that. And then I just took.
So the first step, right? Like the first break that you had was just using your social network, right?
Yeah.
Like there was opportunity because you had a friend who just was also a 9-to-5 worker, right? Like, and was like, hey, this is what I do. And you might be able to fit here. Go and see.
Yes. So it was my business, but I was my employee as well. So I was working and it was my business. After again, business is about solving problems. So I looked and surveyed the warehouse, and I saw the deficiencies in the other drivers that were doing deliveries. And I tried to.
Can you repeat that? Business is about solving problems and then go on with your story?
It's about solving problems. So if you can see a problem that exists and you solve that problem, your potential of earning money, of course, is going to increase. So I looked at the warehouse and I saw, the guys looked pretty raggedy coming to work. So, and we weren't forced to wear uniforms at the time. I had all my guys wear uniforms. The guys that worked for my company, they would have to wear uniforms. And I start adding more structure to it to make the work look more professional. And they began to give me more routes. So now they give me a second route, I hire another guy to do the route. They give me a third, fourth, and eventually I had 5 routes. And now I'm no longer working. It's still a lot of work, but I'm not physically doing the work anymore. I have to do all of the paperwork at that point.
So the second big break came when you just looked at a problem that could have been like professionalism, right? You're like, look at the different people who are here. There's something that they're lacking that we could capitalize on, and let's be professional, and that will make people trust us more. And it worked.
Definitely. And what happened is that I went on a ride along with another driver, and we were up in Montclair on, I think it's South Mountain Avenue. I'm not sure. But everybody's familiar with that area. And a guy went and knocked on the door. It wasn't one of my drivers, but they had me ride along with him to fix a delivery. The lady looked out the window and she wasn't willing to accept the delivery because he didn't look like a delivery guy. And so it was easy for me to, after that, go get some uniforms. I got some uniforms made up, got my names embroidered on them, got the Staples logo added to it, got permission to do it. And then they liked it so much, they started adding it. And then I started doing certain things. I came with my own greeting that I wanted the guys to say. And, certain things like that to make it more professional. And they liked what I was doing, and they gave me more routes due to it.
Because ultimately, you knew people, right? Like, it seems like part of the important thing in every stage of this seems to be your understanding of people, your understanding of your friend who understood logistics, and that relationship was positive. Your understanding of people and what they feel comfortable around and don't feel comfortable around. So wear uniforms, make people greet in different ways, carry yourself in a particular way so that you can form more relationships. But it seems like what you're talking about, expanding your business, is about expanding relationships. Is that an accurate characterization?
Yes, definitely.
And so really you're giving us a breakdown in communication.
Yes.
And
I lived two extreme lifestyles. My parents came from two extremely different backgrounds, and my mother had me living in two extremely different backgrounds. Well, when my parents separated when I was younger, my grandfather had a house in Irvington since the 60s or the 50s, and I guess the area was really nice back then, and it had become pretty bad after some time. And my mother she was making money, but she didn't like the school system that I was going to. So she saved every penny that she had and moved to Bedminster, New Jersey, which, if you know Irvington and Newark, New Jersey, and you know Bedminster, New Jersey,
Morris County,
I don't think it's that's actually Somerset's on the edge of Morris.
Okay.
But it's so extremely different. It's country clubs. There's a ton of horses out there. It looks totally different. So, and I learned a lot from being in that area. And I recognize the things that if you came to deliver out in Bedminster that they wouldn't accept. So I tried to apply the things that I benefited from being in that environment to my business.
You know, Amir, I always say if you stand in Essex County and you go 20 miles in any direction, you see it's so different to what you see.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
You made me think there's a scripture that says your gift will make room for you.
Yes.
And that made me think of, because you did everything you need to make sure your business was good. And then like you said, the money came.
Yes.
And that's what I think about. And I'm a realtor, and my broker was interviewed. And one of the things that he said in his interview was, when he got his business to the level that he can go on vacation or go somewhere and his business will operate as if he was sitting in his office at his desk, he knew he had achieved a level of success. And it seems that those are the things that you know, by step, that you were able to allow to happen with your business. So you weren't initially just looking for the big paycheck. You were looking for the quality business, and the appearance is a big deal, how you show up. And now we're seeing it's a bigger deal now, how people show up at people's doors in a uniform and so on and so forth.
Yes. So now, and eventually what I realized, I was paying close attention to what was happening. The growth that I really was lured doing the stables routes. And I said, you know, there was one guy, he had 30 routes. And I said, well, you know, if I can grow to that point, but I got so close. They used to have, my customer service was, they appreciated my customer service. So whenever guys would do things that it's inappropriate to do at people's house, they would have me come there and correct it. So I got really good with the management. And I realized that it wasn't good for their business to have companies with so many different routes, because if at any point in time I didn't like what was happening, or I wasn't pleased with what was happening, then I could just pull my trucks out, and then that would harm their company. So I realized I wasn't going to be able to achieve the goals by doing local routes. And also it was difficult managing those type of workers. So that's when a turning point started to shift, and I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to attain my goals here. And so and then I also realized that one of the things in business, and it's just, I don't just do the work whenever I've had Staples, Office Max, Office Depot, Value City Furniture, Wayfair Furniture. I've done Sleep Number Bed. I've done Amazon Freight. I've had a lot of contracts all over the country. I used to retrofit lights for Sears and Kmart nationwide. What I realized is that we already know that we get paid for our level of education. We get paid for danger. You know, police officers go into a building when everybody else is running out. Firemen go in when everybody else is running out. COs get paid. We get paid for danger. But the other thing is we get paid for inconvenience. So what I realized is that these local routes were so convenient that the pay was little. And if you go from local to regional, you get paid more. And if you go from regional to long distance, you get paid a lot more, because you don't have the comfort of going home. And so if I'm able to pay the drivers more, then I'm of course I'm able to get better workers. A lot of the things that I had to deal with when the guys were getting paid $100 and $150 a day, I don't have to deal with when now the guys that work are making $1,500 to $2,500 a day. So
wow.
when I realized that I wasn't able to achieve my goals, and to be honest, it was actually so hard dealing with the workers that, because you have guys, they will take a job just to pay a bill and won't come in. And that means you may have to actually jump in the truck and get the work done. So I stopped. I kind of gave up on the local deliveries. And this is, I do a lot of consulting. A lot of times I tell guys, don't look for the local deliveries. A lot of times it's a waste of time. It sounds good when you go into the interview, but in reality, after some time, you'll be stuck into a system of getting paid, and you'll kind of be chasing your tail a little bit. I prefer the long distance because now I can afford. A person may not want to go on the road for a week or 2 weeks, but at least when he comes back, he's leaving. He's making $1,500 to $2,500 a week without any degree, without even a CDL. I found a niche within the system of trucking and logistics where you don't even need a CDL to be able to make that type of money. A lot of people didn't know that was even available. So when a lot of people found out about it, they loved it. They loved the system.
So part of your being an entrepreneur is that it seems like you're always learning. You're a constant problem solver, and that would force you to shift your business model, right?
Yes.
So you said like you're describing the trucking, and now you're getting into the logistics part. Can you tell us about that? Like, what was the shift between the trucking, the local, regional, long distance logistics? How does that happen?
Okay. Logistics, generally speaking, is the commercial activity of moving a product from one customer to another. So some of the times it's done by shipping. Some of the time it's done by air. Some of the times it can be done by truck. It could be those slow trains that get in your way and you have to wait for 20 minutes. That's also logistics. If you go to New York City, when you see guys riding on a bike with a messenger bag, that's logistics as well. Most of the times you're gonna see people in logistics is an $800 billion industry each year. You're gonna see most people that engage in logistics, and doing it by truck. But you can do if you can do it with a bike, you can do. There's some, like if a person wanted to start and they didn't have a truck, I know places where you can take a car and you can do logistics. You can do mail runs and you can put the bags in your car and you deliver by car. Some of them you can do by a cargo van. Some of them you could do by a 16-foot box truck. And then the trucks get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have the 26-foot box truck. And then you have the big truck, which is like a 53-foot trailer that's pulled by a tractor. And that requires a CDL. And so a lot of times, because people know that you're going to get paid according to the size of your vehicle, no matter where you go in the country, you're going to get paid more for the bigger vehicles. Most people skip from the beginning and go straight. People either start at the beginning because they can only afford a small vehicle, or they skip straight to the big trucks, which requires you to have a CDL. I found a niche right before the 53-foot tractor trailers, which is a 26-foot straight truck, and those trucks don't require a CDL, and those trucks don't have the fuel costs that the 53-foot trucks cost. Those trucks don't have the high insurance that the 53-foot trailers have as well. So the expenses all the way around the board. If you have a CDL, it requires that you have a CDL. So if you have a CDL-based operation, not only do your drivers have to have a CDL, but you also have to have a drug and alcohol program within your business. So all the way around the board, the expenses are a lot higher. But a lot of people skip over the 26-foot truck because they don't think, in general, people think, okay, the 26-foot trucks make $1,500 to $2,500 a week, and the straight trucks make $7,000 to $8,000 a week. A lot of people tell you 10, but it's not really realistic. But in reality, I found another niche, which was the opportunity to deliver expedited freight, which brought the rates up to around $6,000 a week, $5,000 to $6,000 a week. You can make $7,000 or $8,000 a week. So now you're making almost as much as the 53-foot truck without as much expenses.
And Amir, also, if you're in the New York City market, Manhattan, there's the niche that goes the opposite way, that you can do bike and have people on subways. Have you ever dealt with that market?
I haven't, because again, as I failed forward, I was working towards getting bigger and bigger and bigger vehicles.
You said failed forward. What does that mean?
You're gonna because this was I didn't inherit the business where somebody else went through all of the trials and errors and handed me the business. You know, after it was already after the pie was already baked. I had to go through a lot of. I went through it. I can't even. I don't know if I could explain that this session isn't long enough to explain all of the failures that I had going along the way.
You had to learn your own mistakes, huh?
Yeah. So the information that I give individuals is so that they can avoid those mistakes.
Wow. So I know that we are coming toward the end of this segment. Tell us when you said you failed up, you made a lot of mistakes, you learned, and then you got into logistics. What are some of the most important lessons that you learned? Again,
the size of the vehicles is what matters. I started doing logistics in 2006, but it's just last year that I'm pretty sure you remember that the business made $1 million within 6 months in 2020. So the biggest difference in between what I was doing from 2006 up until 2020 is it's really based upon the size of the vehicle. Finding that niche of 26-foot straight trucks, doing expedited freight, dispatching, it made a big difference. That segment is a lot more lucrative than the other area. And then I worked a lot less. I have more freedom. I don't get in a truck. I can run my business from anywhere in the world. I can run it off of a laptop. I can run it off of a cell phone. It's easy to hire the workers to perform the work. All the way around the board. The freedom that I always wanted in the early years, I was able to achieve last year.
Amir, during the pandemic, how did your business? Well, I know for delivery, like restaurants and things like that, those type of businesses, and I'm assuming that your business probably thrived too, because people began to shop from home, which caused deliveries to increase at a level that I don't know if the measure is probably high. But how did you do during the pandemic? Your business, was it a quick learn and you just reinvented yourself?
Yes. Some of the benefits to logistics, one of them is that it's a felony friendly field to get in. So you can hire just about anyone to perform the work. Another one of the benefits is that it's a recession proof that our country can't exist without logistics. So the first thing that the former president said, one of the first things that I remember hearing him say when the pandemic began and we were first on lockdown was that he encouraged that the people at the truck stops continue to working because our country can't exist without trucks. Everything that you're looking at, everything that's in your room, almost all of it, maybe 98 or 99% of the things that you can see if you were to look around and scan the room that you're in came in on a truck. Unless you built it there within your home, it came on a truck. So the country our economy would fall apart without trucks. So during the pandemic, it didn't slow down. All truck drivers were essential workers. I used to be on the pandemic. I went on a test drive and I drove from basically from here to Boston, from Boston to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Chicago, back down to North Carolina, and then to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when I went on that trip, if I was driving for 7 hours, I probably saw about 4 or 5 vehicles. I'm talking about at the very beginning of the lockdown. The only thing that was moving on the road was trucks. So the trucks don't stop moving. In fact, there's an increase because I had a partnership with Rhino that offered me 40% discount.
Wow.
And what happened was, during the pandemic, they thought that they were going to have less of a need for vehicles. So they got rid of almost all of the rental companies got rid of 40% of their fleet. Not only did they need that 100%, but they probably needed another 40 or 80% because now things were being delivered by truck that had never been delivered by truck before because nobody was able to move around and do the thing. So now everything had to come in. You saw the amount of packages that were coming in.
So really, did you benefit from that? Like in terms of how you were able to grow, how you were able to do what you needed to do, and even now when they're talking about there's a logistics nightmare, which is why prices are going up. Like we see this in the news, in the headlines. Do you experience this on a micro level?
Yes, there's because there's all again. They say that there's 200,000.
Your sound has just gone out.
I've been in logistics. There's always been a need for more drivers, and especially now there was a need for drivers, and people needed work at the time. And then the amount of money that was getting paid, you know, everybody was making approximately about $2,000 a week.
Wow. So
at a time when there was no other work available.
Amir, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, we were getting ready to wrap things up. But Donna, your question?
I can't hear you. For some reason, the mic went out.
Can you hear us now, Amir?
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
I can't hear you.
Okay, there's something wrong with the mic on your end. I can hear Donna. She can hear me. So I think there might be something wrong with your mic on your end. If you try to go out and come back in, we might be able to get you on. Because we definitely wanted to ask you.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, there is. So
Amir, can you hear us now?
My mic is muted.
Okay.
No, your mic is not muted. We can actually hear you. All right. So I would suggest I'm going to put something in the chat that's basically try to go out and come back in. And in the meantime, we're going to bring Reverend Roundtree on. He's been waiting patiently in the back. And back in. This is our early vote weekend. And one of the things that we are doing is trying to really encourage early voting at every level, right? Because we think it's so important. And Reverend Roundtree just went out. She has been waiting so patiently back here. And we've been trying to get her back on, and she just went out again.
And the deputy clerk is still with us. She's enjoying it. And
right.
And one of the things
hold on a second. Amir's mic is now muted. So
let's unmute him.
No, you muted yourself. He muted himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't unmute you because you're actually. Okay. Yes. Can you hear us now? We can hear you. We can hear you well. Can you hear us?
He can't.
And
Reverend Roundtree is back, but just want to say, Deputy Clerk Hall gave some information about Essex County registering businesses. So just remember, Essex County also registers businesses. When Amir talked about businesses being registered.
Oh, that's excellent. So Amir, I wrote something in the chat. To go out and then come back in. And what I will do is I will take you out and then put you back in, because we definitely want to finish what we started if we can.
Jonathan, if you put his number in the chat, I'll call him and let him know. Can you put his number in the chat and I'll call him and let him know?
Actually, I'll have Miss Roundtree start, and then I'll just call him because I have him have his number. I'll just call him directly. Okay. All right. So, Miss Roundtree, Reverend Roundtree, how are you?
Reverend Roundtree.
Okay, we are having technical
difficulties
all night long.
She looks like she's frozen.
All right, so we're going to bring Miss Hall back, and I'm going to go and talk to Amir and Donna just a little bit more on voting as we in the early vote, because we want everyone to vote not Tuesday, vote Saturday, vote Sunday. You got all day. They're open till 10 o'clock at night on Saturday and 6 o'clock on Sunday.
All right, go get everybody. Go get everybody.
She's correct. Correct you now. Go ahead and correct him, sister.
All right, me and Zaid to take it. You go get Amir.
All right. Yeah.
So
Deputy Clerk Hall, unmute yourself first of all.
And so that's what he was talking about. He was talking about the date.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to point out, no, it's 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. They go off a little bit early on Sunday.
Okay, so if you want an early vote this weekend, what time is it on Saturday?
10 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day.
Okay.
Time that's convenient.
Okay. Now, are y'all like TD Bank? If I call you at 7:59 and say I'll be there at 8:05, are you gonna wait for me? she just laughs,
Legally, what
right?
can I say? I would have to wait. Legally?
I don't know if we fought for all that, Donna.
But when we talk about the polls, that is an important point, though, Donna.
Wait, let me
Exactly
see.
at 8 p.m., the polls are closed. So,
Okay.
yes,
Amir,
I stand
Amir,
outside and
wait,
with
one
a
second.
phone, and we lock the doors at 8. So, yes.
Okay. And then on Sunday until 6 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then on Monday, and Monday is 8 a.m. to what time
10
on Monday?
a.m. to 8 p.m. regular day.
Okay. All right. Now,
let me just mention also, this is such a great segment. My father was a truck driver. He had his own business and he worked for companies. So logistics, I understand everything he says.
Young man has a great story. Yes.
Yes.
But can you just tell when he immediately you jumped right in when he said about his businesses, you put right in the chat that Essex County registers businesses. Did you want to highlight?
If you get inspired by Amir, you work with Amir, and he says to you, okay, now it's time for you to open that business. That's when you come down here to my office. I have a department at 465, but just call me. Ask for me and we can help you get directions. But it's room 240. You go there, you fill out a 4-page form. Each form has to be notarized, and you do have to pay for the form. There's fees and things on the line. Very small fees, though. But talk to our department will help you.
Okay, and I have a real live question. Now, if you're a notary and you get this form in the mail, and do we still have to call and make an appointment, or just come down there and you will do?
Whose is it? Yours?
Yes.
Donna, yes. I'll do you.
But I'm saying, but just for anybody.
But yes, if anybody, that's the process. You have to get the card from Trenton. We call it the green card because it's green. Mm-hmm. You get it, you bring it to our office, but you have to go online and make an appointment, schedule an appointment.
Right.
So Essex County clerk.com.
Okay.
It has a scheduler on there. You find what time is convenient for you. You schedule appointment. You'll get a text and you'll get an email that you're confirmed. You come in with $15, either a money order or cash, and we swear you in and you become a notary.
So let me just say this. You do everything. Reverend Roundtree, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. I don't know how long. Good evening. It's so good to be on America's #1 hip hop.
Yeah, you ready?
I'm gonna let you and Reverend and you and Deputy Clerk Hall talk about this early voting. What did you want to say about early voting, Reverend Roundtree?
But what I know is that, because I'm dealing with, first, good evening to everyone. And thank you to Ed and Jonathan for allowing me this opportunity once again to join my beautiful brothers and sisters on this line.
Well, once that we got a round robin now, we got everybody in. So
I see brother Amir.
Yeah, Amir, this is Amir, you let me just let Reverend Roundtree, we're gonna finish with, but Amir, I wanted you to know that Deputy Clerk Hall was inspired. Her father used to be a truck driver, but let Reverend Roundtree say her what she was gonna say, and then we're gonna come to Amir. Go ahead.
Okay. So good evening, Amir, because I get excited when I see young brothers. Look, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the early voting, but it's good to have an early announcement of a young man who is doing the great things that you are doing to inspire other young men to persevere. I'm that single mother who had a young man that I was trying to run from City Hall to football games to basketball games. And it doesn't matter. One thing I must say, it doesn't affect you either way it goes. I would come to a basketball game in a church suit, bling all over it, having my son look at me. I don't know, he'd rather me come in jeans, or not come at all, than come look like I was ready for the pulpit. Yeah. But just the same, God bless you, and I could commend you for persevering and doing things you're doing. Early voting, they say that over 68,000 across the state of New Jersey have already voted. Well, my area is Faith. And of course, you all know that on Sunday, I am doing I've coordinated. They've been doing this all across the state, Patterson.
Reverend Roundtree, you better not be talking souls to the polls. Didn't the last president say you can't do that no more?
What president you talking about? I don't know about no last president. Don't make me start acting dumb up on here and naive. I don't know. Listen, I don't care how you look at it. A whole lot of souls went to the polls and put him in office. But anyway, please don't take me there.
Trouble
Because
soul.
y'all start bringing up some bad memories, and I got to go somewhere else.
Okay, I'm sorry, Reverend Roundtree. I'm sorry, Mama. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Listen, let's stay positive. So the truth of the matter is, it's an honor, and I thank God for where I am on the municipal side, being able to represent the mayor and the faith leaders across the city of Newark. But we coordinated for the state of New Jersey in the Essex County area, faith leaders to bring souls to the polls. And I hope that those of you who are listening will join me on Sunday afternoon at Weequahic Park. There will be a Souls to the Polls rally. Now, again, everyone knows that my area is faith. And Donna, let me tell you something. Folks walk around talking about what Shirley Chisholm said about if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own chair. But I want to say, while you bring in your chair, make sure you've done something to even come to sit in the chair and have a conversation about. Because if you don't contribute anything or you don't have anything to bring but a chair, that's a problem. So my thing is, while we walk around talking about the numbers, we talk about 94% African Americans were responsible for Governor Murphy being elected. Will be recognized for what they're bringing. That's why all souls to the polls is so important. That on Sunday, last Sunday, there was an awesome operation of the 24th, and then there's another one on this Sunday, where when individuals get out of church in the Essex County area, they will be able to go over to Weequahic Park and vote early. I'm voting on the 31st because I want to walk with the Essex County constituency as they vote early.
Now, Reverend Roundtree, is that for Newark? Is that for Newark voters? Because, for instance, I go to St. James. Could I come down there?
You got to come on and bring all of St. James with you. I don't want to start calling names. The Pastor Ronald Slaughter is our keynote for that rally. Come on, don't make me start. And you know I believe in diversity. Go ahead.
But I'm saying, if I'm in Orange, can I come down there and vote?
Come right
well?
on. Okay. I said Essex County.
Yes, ma'am.
Essex County.
Okay. Just want people to hear that.
As a matter of fact,
what time is it? What time is it? And what part of the park is it?
Over at the Feldman Middleton Community Center. And we're starting. I put 1:30 on the flyer. I did share the flyer with Brother Ed. I'll share with all of you. We're starting the program about 2 because there's going to be some speakers prior to Pastor Slaughter. I'm giving a brief keynote. We won't be out there for 5 hours, of course, but we do have the Latino population represented by Pastor Pablo Pizarro. We have the Muslim community represented by Imam Dawuhat. We have the East Orange clergy, the East Orange and clergy representation by the president of that organization, which is Pastor Prescott Butler. We have a woman represented because I don't do nothing without a woman being present. The sisters got to be present. Reverend Thurcell C. Williams will be representing the women. Of course, there will be some others, Pastor Vincent Rouse, along with Pastor Patrick Cowan. So there are some other individuals that will be speaking, and Pastor Donna, come on here, is going to be bringing that final word. Newark better show up, and we know that all things work together for the good for those who are called according to his purpose. And we just are excited about Sunday. Listen, a couple other municipalities had a number. I'm not going to call no numbers, and I'm not going to say who they are. But I know Newark in Essex County, we need to see about 1,000 strong out there. Even if you already voted.
Now we're going to go.
1,000. You have not because you asked not. Y'all come on out and join those who are voting early. Come out, encourage folk to come out on Sunday, October 31st, Weequahic Park by the baseball field. The machines will be at the Feldman Middleton Community Center, and we will be on the field giving praise, giving words, and talking about early voting so they can say this time what souls did at the polls.
Now we're gonna go. Now we're gonna pass it back to Amir because he was closing out and he had something to say. Jonathan, I know our next segment is right on our heels.
That's what Jonathan said. Come on, Roundtree. Come on, that's it.
So Amir,
listen, we was at the Apollo. He probably put the hook and bring me right on in. I'm done.
But what I do want you to do is make sure you guys go to the All Politics Facebook page so that flyer will be up. And Amir, before we couldn't hear you anymore, what was the last thing he was talking about, Jonathan?
Yeah, because we're going to ask him that question and just end off what he's saying because we know we're going to the next segment. Amir, we definitely want to have you back on.
Okay.
Like your story is compelling. Like I think you taught a lot of people a lot. But just close it out, and as you close it out, we're going to ask you that question. So as you're closing it out, you can tell us who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group.
Very easy.
I want to remind. I'm sorry, I want to remind everybody: if you're not speaking, please mute your mic.
All right. So you said Jay-Z.
Very easy, Jay-Z.
All right.
Just like Barack Obama gave hope to all black people in terms of politics, Jay-Z gave hope to every inner city kid that grew up in the projects.
All right. And is there anything else you want us to know about what you're doing before we go? Because we learned a lot. We're gonna have you back.
Okay. Again, we're putting together 2 courses, online courses that are gonna one is going to be a complete trucker portal for people that have enough money to create a trucking company. We'll give them basically everything that they need, so they can avoid the failure and the process of developing. They'll have the system that I had in the last 2 years to develop their company. And for those who are looking for work and just try to learn the system, we're going to have a dispatching course, which gives you the ins and outs of dispatching, and I'm actually going to give that away free to the residents of Newark and Essex County.
Oh, that's amazing! Right?
And Amir, if you can go to the private chat, a couple things. If you could put your number in there, and also the deputy clerk gave you some information because she does registration of Essex County businesses, so you can have that in your toolkit as well. So it's in the private chat for you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, man.
You're very welcome.
And we learned a lot. And thank you so much, Reverend Roundtree
Great
and
story,
Garnett Hall. Because so thank you so much, Reverend Roundtree and Garnett Hall, for talking to us about early voting. So you can hear me, right? Zaid, you were saying?
No, it looks like Roundtree's frozen.
Okay, well, that's fine because we're getting ready.
Hey, Jonathan, where did Jonathan go? Yeah,
we're having a great day tech-wise.
Jonathan.
Yeah, so
Jonathan, Lillian said that you really want everybody to vote early.
Yes, vote early. You don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. There might be a rainstorm in New Jersey. We know what happens then.
Hey, listen, it's not to be. Listen, it snowed Remember, it snowed at Halloween. That's right.
I remember. Right, I remember it snowed at Halloween. I remember Sandy. Obama 2012. Sandy. Yeah, so that was some stuff.
You never. So if everybody, and perhaps we got too many people in the background. So if your segment is finished, we will ask everybody to sign out the studio. That could be part of it too. Okay. So thank you, and
thank you so much.
And Deputy Deputy Clerk, we're gonna have to have you back as well.
Absolutely, because you got to tell us more about.
We are connected now, and anything that I come up that might be, I'll shoot it to you, and we can get it out to the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So in this next segment, we're going to be talking about, and of course, Zaid, you're going to give the real introduction. But I'm saying that in this next segment that I've been waiting for, we have one of our guests back, Johanna Fernandez, who's
my favorite professor. Oh,
yes, one of our favorite professors.
Yes.
And she's going to be talking about updates with Mumia and a conversation that will involve political prisoners and a recent event where the United States was again found guilty. And we could talk about that and what the implications
Human rights
are.
violations against Black, brown, and indigenous people in the United States. Yes.
So, Zaid, can you give one of your introductions? Because, like Johanna Fernandez needs
Madam Mike
one of
check.
your introductions.
Johanna Fernandez is. I met Johanna. Johanna, I don't know if you can remember when we met, but we had a very modest rally on Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard some years ago, and you came in with a handful of students, very modestly, very politely, and very quietly, and before you know it, she dropped the film. Boom. Right? It was a, whoa, who is this little sister? She coming in blazing. And she has really been become a real force, an important voice, an important lead voice for us in the fight for the freedom of Mumia Abu Jamal. Right? She is the author of a powerful book on the Young Lords that just came out. The event that Jonathan was referring to was a tribunal that was convened last weekend at, of all places, the Shabazz Center, the former Audubon Ballroom, where Malcolm X launched the Organization of Afro-American Unity, the vehicle by which he was bringing the struggle of our people in the golden age of our struggle, that was the 1960s, into the international arena. So it was fitting to have, thank you, Jonathan has got Johanna's book in his hand. We got to bring that's a whole conversation that we haven't even brought her in yet on the Young Lord Party. And quite frankly, there's also a Newark, chapter to the Young Lords that's very important in Newark's history that we want to develop too when you come back from that. But last weekend, right? I wasn't with y'all Friday because where was I? I had to be in the street here in Newark for Newark's representation of the 26th annual National Day Against Police Brutality, where we rallied on the Fraternal Order of Police for the third year in a row. They're no longer off limits for all the mess and all the obstacles they create around police reform in this country. And I had to leave there and run into New York because I had the task of opening the International Tribunal on Human Rights Violations in the United States against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. And on the first day of testimony, one of the expert witnesses was our guest who we're about to have and enjoy over these next few minutes, Professor Johanna Fernandez. The City University of New York's school system is a teacher and professor of history. Done an important film on Mumia Abu Jamal, and has edited helped Mumia on some of his books, right? And like I said, is one of our lead voices in the whole fight for Mumia's freedom, right? And unfortunately, even though we just had a couple of victories on the political prisoner fight, the granting of medically compassionate release for Russell Maroon Schultz after some 49 years in captivity, and really up against it, facing terminal stage 4 colon cancer, and the granting of parole for David Gilbert, the state of New York's last political prisoner. We then get a dark decision coming out of the courts of Pennsylvania against Mumia, and we're going to let Johanna break that down and give some more background as to what she participated in this past weekend. So Johanna Fernandez, welcome back to All Politics Are Local.
And before she starts, I just want to say I had the opportunity to meet her when she gave a teaching in Orange, New Jersey regarding Marilyn Zuniga.
That's right. That's right.
The teaching that she did here was so dynamic that I'm sorry if anybody missed it. So she became one of my favorite professors.
Did we record that? You can say something. You have to look back and see if we documented that.
Yeah, we have to see if we did that.
If we did, right?
She's done some tremendous work in this area. So without further ado,
Jersey. Yeah, that's the fight we should have won. Our daughter Marilyn Zuniga took up behind that in New Jersey, went to Oakland of all places, and totally redid her life and is having a good time teaching in a very liberated space and enjoying what she's doing. It's a shame she had to leave this crazy up south gangster state in order to do it. But that's part of what this struggle is all about. So tell us, beloved, what's going on with Mumia and what happened last weekend?
Well, thank you for the illustrious introduction, Donna's, Baba Saeed, Jonathan. Thank you for the love. And thank you for those struggles of the past. The Maryland Zuniga struggle that New Jersey, that both of you supported. Important. Okay, so what's going on with the case of Mumia Abu Jamal? I'll start by saying that 2 years ago, a judge by the name of Leon Tucker,
a black Republican judge,
a black Republican judge in
tell the story. Yes,
the lower courts, the Court of Common Pleas, Republican judge, not necessarily a friend of black people in prison, let alone Mumia, but the judge, Leon Tucker, established that there was judicial bias in Mumia's case. Judicial bias in the realm of Mumia's appellate process. So essentially, that one of the judges involved in deliberating on Mumia's appeals, a man by the name of Ronald Castile, had previously been prosecutor of Philadelphia, prosecuted Mumia's case, and should never, therefore, had heard his appeals, because you can't be both prosecutor and judge in the same case.
Or so they say.
So they say. So that's the issue that Mumia won on 2 years ago. The judge, Leon Tucker, a black Republican, established that, in fact, there had been judicial bias, that Ronald Castile should have recused himself from hearing Mumia's appeals. We won. Not only did we win, the DA of Philadelphia didn't challenge Leon Tucker's decision that the judge, Ronald Castile, engaged in judicial bias and should have recused himself. Okay, so all of Mumia's appeals from the 1990s to 2012 were reopened, because all of them had been denied by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court,
right,
where this judge
he participated in that.
Exactly. Okay, so our attorneys do all of the papers on the appeals. The DA responds to our arguments on these issues that were being taken up to be reconsidered on appeal. And they give this to the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. And just this week, the court decides to quash the appellate process because, in its view, the terms of Judge Tucker's decision and the evidence presented didn't establish a violation of constitutional proportion. So even though the DA didn't challenge Leon Tucker's decision, the Superior Court went on to review Leon Tucker's decision and decide to throw it out on the basis that the judicial bias cited did not violate constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of Mumia Abu Jamal. So that's where we are. That the reappeal, which had been won, has now been quashed. However, during the hearings of that long issue over which Mumia prevailed, judicial bias, during those hearings, new evidence emerged in Mumia's case. 6 boxes showed up in the darkest corners of the DA's office. And in those boxes, the lead witness of the prosecution in Mumia's case essentially says to the prosecutor in a letter, "Where's my money?
Whoa, wait, time out. Hold up. You're saying that, like, after all of these years, after close to 40 years, a box shows up in a corner in a police department that they find. So the prosecutor found this box, and in this box, you have the lead witness say to a prosecutor, "Where's my money?
Where is my money? When are you? I've been trying to get my money, but you're nowhere to be found. When am I going to get my money? How can I get it?" Literally.
And this is after the trial. Like, this letter is dated after the trial.
Immediately after the trial. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So immediately after the trial's over, the lead witness is talking to the prosecutor and says, when am I gonna get my money?
Yeah. B better have my money. Like, we can do the,
Wow.
I don't know if we can curse here, but
family program. But
okay,
still, right. But still, like, so of course the prosecutor
should have been released
is
on
now
that.
liberal, right? He's a good liberal, and now the good liberal saw the exculpatory evidence, and Mumia is about to be free, right?
Right.
You would think,
right?
So that's exculpatory evidence. I mean, I'm no lawyer, but
yeah. Well, this new evidence that also includes a note wherein the prosecutor is tracking the race of potential jurors, which is a Batson claim, which would get Mumia a new trial, essentially discrimination in jury selection. So there's two very important pieces of evidence that can only be reviewed by lower courts. So that's where we are now. Because in Pennsylvania, you can't litigate two issues at the same time. So we couldn't have been litigating the appellate issue, which we just lost, and the new evidence.
okay.
So now we are going to litigate the new evidence in the lower courts.
So the new evidence has never been tested. No one's ever that has not met the light of day in a court, and the prosecutor wasn't just like, look at the evidence and go, oh man, this is bad.
Right. Right.
Has there been any official commentary on this?
No, of course not. Absolutely not. They're trying to concoct their story as we speak. But it's going to be very difficult for them to wiggle their way out of this one.
So the process right now is on the new evidence, and clearly there are two things that, like, one, you had this exculpatory evidence in your basement in a box and you didn't show anyone for close to 40 years. Like, that may be a bad thing that they could lose on appeal, right? Like,
right.
It was evidence that you actually paid a witness in a trial.
Right. I mean, you raise a good question, which I hadn't even considered, which is that the fact that this evidence had been hidden for 40 years in and of itself should grant Mumia release.
that's right.
You think?
So they have to release, I mean, they have to release all the evidence to the opposing attorneys, right? I mean, I think that's pretty basic, right? Like, you have to release evidence to the opposition, right? Like, I mean, if you're a prosecutor, if there's exculpatory evidence, especially on appeal, all the other stuff, like, it was after the actual trial, but it was for all the appeals, right? And so, like, they're going to have to be creative about why that evidence in that box that was sat there for close to 40 years only saw the light of day recently by accident. Probably, definitely by accident. Is there a story behind who found it and what happened?
Well, I mean, they'll have to make up a story only if we are there in the courtroom. Because ultimately, the criminal justice system is not about justice or sense or logic. And there's all kinds of trickery and framing that happens day in and day out. The story is essentially that the DA himself was looking for some furniture. And in the process of looking for furniture in the DA's office, they encounter a mid-level floor where there were hundreds of boxes of old cases. And at the time that the DA found these boxes, he was actually being filmed for a movie about the man himself. So once those boxes were found and there was a tape recording by a filmmaker of the find, I don't think that they could have been not released to the judge and to the media.
But how did they who went through the box and was like, wow? Like, is there any record of that? Like, who actually found the box?
No, it was the DA.
No, but I mean, like, who actually went in the box and was like, Mumia stuff, right? Because I mean, it seems like, oh, there are a bunch of boxes here.
So there were, among these hundreds of boxes, there were 6 boxes with the name Mumia Abu Jamal.
Oh.
Right. So all of these boxes belong to prisoners, and their names are on them. And on this basis, right, what the hell happened to those 100 boxes? Has anyone gone through them? Do the prisoners whose boxes those files belong to even know that their boxes are down there?
Right.
On that basis alone, people should be let go.
That's right. That's right.
All the evidence in these boxes that has been pretty much hidden under a rug. This is the framing. Mumia was framed, but the framing and the police corruption and the tampering with evidence to obtain a conviction, this is par for the course of the criminal justice system, and the prosecutors know it. I mean, they work with the police.
Wow. So, can you give us some background on why the targeting of Mumia, right? Because I think that for many people who might be seeing this for the first time, they don't necessarily know who Mumia is. They know he's been in prison for 40 years. But what is the basis of the international? There's an international clamor to get him a new trial, to free him. There's been international clamor that he has been framed. Can you, in short order, give us that summary of what this case is about?
Okay, so Mumia is a veteran Black Panther. He was also an award-winning journalist at the time of his arrest in 1981. He was exposing police corruption and corruption in City Hall. And
so that's what he was writing about.
Becoming Black journalist who 10 years ago had been a Black Panther and had a 500-page FBI file. And one of those files has Mumia's picture on it, and in the back it has the word dead written on the paper, on the back of the photo. So Mumia was known as an up-and-coming journalist. And
an up-and-coming journalist and Black Panther. Does this have anything to do with, like, I know a lot of people saw the movie, the Judas and the Black Messiah, and talking about Fred Hampton, and how he was actually targeted by the FBI and the Chicago police, and actually murdered by the Chicago police. He was going to be a Black Messiah. Does this have anything to do with COINTELPRO and what happened with Fred Hampton?
Well, Mumia, like Fred Hampton and like other members of the Black Panthers, were persecuted, hounded by the counterintelligence program of the FBI, who launched a homicidal campaign against the Black Panther Party. So the history is continuous. But in the case of Mumia, he in the 1980s and late 1970s was a supporter of the MOVE organization, a Black radical organization that you probably know that was persecuted by the police and the mayor's office.
They are the
And
pioneers of what we now call environmental justice.
oh, absolutely.
Right?
They took the
Folks
last
ask the question, where are the Black voices in environmental justice? They had a bunch of them in prison for over 40 years. I just had to throw that in there. Go ahead, Johanna. Finish.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for that. I mean, Saeed has been active in these cases for decades now. So Mumia was the journalist who reported on the MOVE organization positively from the perspective of MOVE, and didn't berate them or demonize them as did the rest of the media. So Mumia was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was shot and almost killed by the police. Essentially, Mumia was a cab driver by night and a radio journalist by day. He stopped one night in front of a clubhouse and looked across a parking lot and recognized that his brother was being beaten by a cop. He approached the scene to defend his brother, and out of that encounter, Mumia was shot, a cop was killed, and Mumia at that point was framed by the Philadelphia PD. This happened in Philadelphia. Anyway, that's the framework of the case, more or less. But just to give you a sense of what happened during the trial, Mumia was not tried with evidence. So there's no evidence that pointed to Mumia killing Officer Faulkner.
So in other words, no murder weapon, no fingerprints on a murder weapon, no ballistics, no hand smoke residue, nothing like that.
None of that. And that's a lot of what the film I made covers. So no fingerprints.
It's called Justice on Trial, by the way.
Justice on Trial. Just to give you a sense of who the judge was who presided over the case, Judge Sabo. He was known as the hanging judge. He was overheard saying, quote, "I'm going to help them fry the nigger," unquote. A court stenographer heard him say this about Mumia and how he was going to instruct the jurors who were hearing Mumia's case. "I'm going to help them fry the nigger." 30%.
This is in the city of brotherly love.
Right.
This ain't talking about Alabama. We ain't talking about Mississippi. We ain't talking about Georgia. We're talking about Philadelphia, the land of time of Frank Risso.
15 of the police officers involved in collecting evidence in Mumia's case were tried, convicted, and jailed for corruption and tampering with evidence to obtain convictions.
Say that again.
15 of the cops involved in Mumia's case were convicted, jailed, tried, convicted, and jailed for tampering with evidence to obtain convictions and corruption in days of the end of Mumia's trial.
Wait, hold on. So, you said 15 police officers were objectively convicted in a court of law, they had tampered with evidence. Was that evidence from the Mumia trial, or was that just other trials?
Other trials.
So within days after Mumia's conviction, 15 other officers were tried and convicted on evidence tampering. And those were the officers who were involved in finding the whatever evidence that was in Mumia's trial?
And
Exactly.
the Pennsylvania courts won't touch the frivolous dimensions involved in Mumia's conviction, loaded with all of the corruption and grime that she just described.
And Pennsylvania is just might as well be Mississippi. It had the largest number of juveniles serving life in prison without parole. It has the largest number of people serving life in prison without parole per capita in the world.
Wow.
In the world.
And I thought it was Louisiana, but it's Pennsylvania. You're
It's
absolutely
Pennsylvania.
right.
It's Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm,
And I can go on and on and on and on. I mean, this is the birthplace of American prisons, Pennsylvania.
Did not know that in terms of the birthplace of American prisons. And so after all this time, I know that from what I hear, right, the progressive community in Philadelphia fought long and hard to have a new, very progressive, and I keep hearing every time I hear his name, every time I hear about the district attorney in Pennsylvania, it always has the word progressive before it. Is that a reason why this will get better?
No, this is going to get better if people fight for it. And people have been fighting for it, in fact. A number of prisoners filed a lawsuit against Pennsylvania and its Department of Corrections for not allowing people serving life in prison without parole a parole hearing. So there's a movement to end life in prison without parole, which is the death penalty, essentially, slow death row. Yeah, so it's the history of humanity demonstrates that power concedes nothing without struggle. Those are the words of Frederick Douglass, that we're going to have to fight for Mumia's freedom. We're going to have to fight for political prisoners to come home. And they've been coming home. Russell Maroon Shoatz, after 50 years in prison, Black political prisoner, 78 years old, suffering with cancer, terminal cancer, has, after a long battle, been released to hospice to spend the rest of his life on Earth with his loved ones. Huge victory.
He may have a month left to live.
He has a month left to live. Exactly.
Maroon was ferocious. He's one of the most feared of all of our freedom fighters. He was indeed the true Maroon. Johanna, that which leads me to another point I want you to bring out that I think folks need to appreciate too, is not only are we fighting against the injustice, the legal of injustice of what we're dealing with Mumia, but we're also dealing with, it's like you just described Maroon's health crisis. Mumia is one of a number of political prisoners who's facing his own health crisis. We had to fight like hell to get him checked out, and they get that surgery for him for his heart. But then there's still the questioning of the continued sickening of Mumia behind the conditions that he's facing that is not good for anybody in this state of health, the fragile state of health that he's in even after that surgery. So why don't you talk about the question of his health for a few minutes also?
Right. So I think that we need to just draw a larger picture here, because there's an organization called RAP, Release Aging People in Prison. It formed like 15 years ago. And Laura Whitehorn, a former political prisoner, is one of the
she's one of the main organizers.
Main organizers. And they've been fighting to release aging people in prison over the age of 50. That includes our political prisoners who've been in prison for decades. Mumia, 40 years. Russell Maroon Shoatz, 50 years. David Gilbert, who's also coming home. The last political prisoner in New York
New
State,
York State. Yep.
40 years in prison.
And Professor Fernandez, what are their sentences like? 40 years to life, 50 years to life, and they're just what were the at the sentencing? What were they given?
Mumia was put on death row,
Okay.
and an international movement saved his life, stopped the execution twice in the 1990s. And then after 28 and a half years on death row without being able to touch another human being, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court determined that that his death sentence was obtained unconstitutionally, and he was given life in prison without parole. So Mumia's life in prison without parole. David Gilbert had 75 years to life. Russell Maroon Shoatz, life in prison without parole. So listen, this
Sundiata Acoli, I got to throw that in because New Jersey, Sundiata Acoli, Asada's co-defendant.
Yes.
84 years old now, 48 years in prison. And we're trying
and
to
what was he?
on that
And
front.
what was his sentence?
Life plus 30 years.
Life plus 30 years. Yeah, insane. This country has the highest rates of just outrageous sentencing in the world, or one of the highest rates, certainly higher than Europe. In Europe, the most you'll spend in prison is 20 years, regardless of the crime you commit. So the United States is taking life away from people, disproportionately Black people, brown people. Mumia's health, very quickly. Mumia has been on the verge of death now twice in 5 years. First, he literally fainted. He had a diabetic shock in the infirmary and was deathly ill. This was approximately 5 years ago. And this last summer, Mumia had COVID, was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, but a prisoner, after he was released, told him, listen, I've had heart attacks in here numerous times. I think you're about to get a heart attack. You need to go to the infirmary right now. A prisoner saved Mumia's life. Mumia paid attention to the prisoner.
Both times.
Both times, exactly. Eventually, he ended up in the hospital immediately. And it turns out that he didn't have congestive heart failure. He was misdiagnosed. He had 4 clogged arteries, and he had to have open heart surgery.
Okay.
So that's his situation. And a prison is no place for ill people, for people to recuperate. The environment is devastating, and the water is not water fit for human beings or animals. And they have to bathe in that water, and sometimes they drink that water. So these are the conditions that Mumia, all of our political prisoners, Sundiata Acoli in New Jersey, and elsewhere have to deal with.
Wow. I know that we're running close to the end of time, and I know that there's something you wanted to also talk about what happened last week.
We're going to talk about the tribunal.
The
We're talk about the testimony of the tribunal, because one of the things that was very important that Johanna laid out is Johanna laid out how the decade that was our golden age of struggle came to an end with repression. The repression that was COINTELPRO and the whole slew of laws that basically criminalized our community that began what folks now call mass incarceration. Mass incarceration didn't come out of the sky. It came out of the repression of the Black Liberation Movement, right? So we decided, and Joanna actually laid that out. And I also want to acknowledge, because we would ordinarily be in the Paul Robeson Campus Center doing this show. We did the tribunal to mark the 70th anniversary of the legendary Paul Robeson and William Patterson leading a similar charge against the United States at the United Nations against genocide back in December of 1951. And we were blessed even to have William Patterson's daughter not just be with us, but also be one of the expert witnesses. But Johanna, I want you to sum up what I just talked about, how the repression of our movement also became the bridge for mass incarceration, and why that's a part of the whole charge of genocide against the U.S. At that tribunal, and why that's important.
Absolutely. And the organizers of the tribunal have to be commended. It was just an epic,
including former political prisoners themselves.
Yes,
we had Jihad on just 2 weeks ago, Johanna. We had Jihad on to explain it, right? Jalil Muntakim, who did 49 years actively involved, right? Sekou Udenga, who did 33 years actively involved. It's a great story in terms of how freedom fighters themselves got involved in this. But go ahead. I don't want to take time from you on the mic.
Another lesson of history is that we got to free ourselves.
That's right.
And so, yes,
must be our own liberators in Jalil's language. I got to get him on.
It's the freed political prisoners who led the charge. And my contribution was the following: that if you think about one of the most famous documents of the 60s, it's Letter from a Birmingham Jail, written by Martin Luther King in a Birmingham jail. The civil rights and Black Power movements were demonized by Southern politicians, but also liberal politicians up north, with law and order, politics, and a campaign. Those terms, law and order, were repeated over and over and over again to demonize the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the activism and sit-ins of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And then when the Black Panther Party emerges in 1966, the FBI launches a homicidal campaign against the organization, literally killing dozens of Black Panthers. So the repression of the state came in homicidal packages, as in Fred Hampton and Robert Clark. It came in the form of propaganda, law and order, and a lot of frenzy. There was a moral frenzy created by the media around crime, which was linked to the urban rebellions and to the Black Power movement. And then there were a series of laws that were passed. The 1968 Crime Act literally made stop and frisk legal for the first time in American history. It made wiretapping legal and a whole bunch of other things. It essentially put crime in the subconscious and conscious of American society and connected that to Black radicals. So at the end of the 60s, if you recall, the movement turned to free political prisoners. Huey Newton, Angela Davis, Carlos Feliciano, and on and on and on and on. There was a brutal campaign of repression against Black radicals in particular, launched by politicians, government, and the FBI. And their political organizing was connected to crime. It was criminalized. So they cranked up the apparatus of law and order and incarceration against Black radicals. And at the height of deindustrialization in the late 1970s and 80s, they literally shifted and trained that apparatus on a surplus of humanity that the system could not employ, predominantly Black and Latino people in urban centers. And that's when the hyper incarceration of all people in urban centers, Black and brown, takes shape.
Listen, and so we dare say that we can't talk about mass incarceration without also talking about the release of our political prisoners, because the continuum is the same, the motion is the same, the intent is the same, the mechanism is the same. And I have to fight with some of our folks, some of our so-called liberal Black and brown intellectuals on that sometime too, who kind of just deal with the second part, but won't deal with the first part.
Well, I don't think it's the same. It's actually worse. See, they could not have gotten away with criminalizing the whole of the Black community in the era of civil rights. They got away with cranking up the apparatus of incarceration and law and order because they turned a Red Scare at the Black Panther Party, right? So they criminalized the politics of the Black liberation movement, and put people in prison, but also killed people in the streets.
That's right.
Right? And when Black people defended themselves, then they were given these life sentences plus 30 years. Our Black political prisoners who were members of the Black Liberation Army, who were defending themselves against this bloody campaign of repression launched against them by the FBI and the police.
It's interesting.
I'll sum that up this way. I want folks to also appreciate a book by a political prisoner, Marshall Eddie Conway, who did 44 years. This book, The Greatest Threat, where Marshall himself documents how COINTELPRO made the Black Panther Party identified as the number one threat to the internal security of the United States, and justifying everything and anything that the government did to them, right? As we wind that down, and that year, that was 1969. Jonathan, you opened up the discussion talking about the film on the Judas Factor, the film on Fred. 1969, the Black Panther Party lost 28 Panthers, 28 in that year alone, culminating with the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark.
Wait, can you repeat that, Baba Zay?
9.
Zay, can you repeat that?
Yes.
You said that in the year 1969.
The year that was 1969, marking an acceleration of COINTELPRO operations against the Black Panther Party. The party alone lost 28 Panthers in the course of that year. 28, right? And it began with Bunchy Carter and Johnny Huggins in January of 69, and it ended with Fred and Mark Clark on December 4th in 69. In 1 year. In 1 year.
So yeah, I mean, the FBI, through its COINTELPRO program, launched a homicidal campaign against the Black
You're the first one to use that language. I love the language that you use because it's dead on point.
Against the Black Panther Party that took the lives of dozens of Black Panthers.
And in doing that, do you think that they set a tone for the next generation? Like, do you think that they were making a deliberate effort to scare people from even thinking about joining movements? Do you think a lot of this was about demoralization?
Oh, absolutely. It was. They had to make an example of the Negroes,
just like they did on the plantation.
Listen, this is the thing. When you think of the Second Amendment, you think of white men with guns. The natives, Indians, and enslaved Africans were never supposed to own guns. They were to be controlled with guns and with white men on horses with guns. So for the least of these, the children of enslaved Africans in northern centers to don guns legally to police the police, that was the biggest, they broke the biggest commandment in the planet, the Black Panthers. So an example needed to be made of those Negroes who dared to don guns to defend their community. Yes, an example had to be made out of the Black Panther Party, but in making an example out of the Black Panther Party and imprisoning Black leaders and killing them so easily, Fred Hampton, Robert Clark, but also Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you essentially train Black people and American people to the evisceration of Black life. That then you make structural through hyper incarceration in the late 1970s, 80s, and 90s. It's a kind of death, right? You sequester a whole
genocide
segment of the population. It's
killing
genocide.
members of the group, removing members of the group.
Yes, and the information you gave us, as always, is excellent, and we are going to have you back again. I'm actually committed to reading your book on the Young Lords to use some of that. A lot of the things that we're debating about, I believe you are talking about in your book.
Yes.
And I I'm a high school debate coach, and we get various arguments from various things in history and different historical movements. And this is one where we will learn a lot from as well. So we definitely want to have you back again so that we can get fully into it. And I think I want to have you back just to talk about your book and just to talk about like various questions that come up there. So do you want to ask that final question?
Sit down and ask it. She's waiting to do something.
No, I'm not. I'm sitting here. I'm good. But I do see Chairman Hamm. Chairman Hamm. You see Professor Fernandez. I'm glad that you guys got to see each other before, as you one segment closes and the other opens. But Professor Fernandez, you've been here before, so our question is, what hip-hop artists are you listening to these days, or who's your favorite hip-hop artist, individual or group?
Damn. I'm gonna have to say No Name for now.
Yay. No, I love No Name. She's like one of my favorites. She's a poet. She's actually one of my favorite. She's actually my top 5. Yeah. Like No Name is in my top 5.
I think you mentioned her before, Jonathan. Yes, you did. Okay.
My students, it's because I have students who listen to her, and they were like, "She's great. She's awesome." And so when I listened to her, and she's the type of rap like when my daughter was maybe like 11. I hipped her to No Name. So I was like, it was someone I could actually have my daughter listen to, but also because she's just a smart poet and just great. I love No Name too.
And an abolitionist and on the left.
And Professor Fernandez, did you know Chairman Hamm happened to walk from Montclair, New Jersey to Trenton over the last couple of days, last month?
No,
middle month of this month, because now we're at the end. So yeah, he's coming to talk to us about that, and so we'll
gotten you talk about that. You should have gotten that from me. We got to fix that.
What? No.
You know when I met Dr. Fernandez
at the teaching? When?
No, I met Dr. Fernandez when she called me about a young teacher in Orange, New Jersey, named Marilyn Zuniga.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Who was trying to engage in a humanitarian gesture, and our students sent happy birthday greetings to Mumia Abu Jamal.
That's right.
And it caused an uproar that was heard across the country. And
you remember she did the teaching in Orange as a result of that.
That's right. That's right. But I remember upon meeting Dr. Fernandez, we had some collations at a little restaurant on Central Avenue in Sussex near Martin Luther King.
Yes.
And I remember how impressed I was upon meeting her the first time. And I'm forever in the debt of Dr. Fernandez because it is she who arranged for me to meet Mumia Abu-Jamal in the prison there in Pennsylvania. And Dr. Fernandez, I will forever be grateful to you for that opportunity.
And Mumia still mentions that visit. And I will forever be indebted to you and to the People's Organization for Progress, POP, for the incredible Herculean campaign you launched to defend Marilyn Zuniga. It was epic.
It was. Yes.
It was
I
one of
agree.
the most beautiful moments in our struggle, I think.
Yes.
It was beautiful. It's a damn shame we didn't win. It was backwards Negroes and
there's different definitions. I don't know. There's different definitions of winning, and I think we did a tremendous.
We should have won.
Yeah,
I think that the thing
backwards Negroes shouldn't be kicked out of history. We should have won.
But to me, I think that's like, and me basically in hindsight, because I didn't really realize what was going on. I was debate coaching, all the other stuff, didn't fully understand what was going on until afterwards. But afterwards, I'm like, we have so many predominantly Black districts around, like Newark, Orange, right? Like Newark, and I meant like Irvington, East Orange, right? Like there's so many different predominantly Irvington. There's so many different predominantly Black districts around that should have had a better understanding of that history and should have welcomed her with open arms. Like at the point that Orange fired her, she should have been hired on step or above at all of these different districts who could realize that, just how powerful.
She went all the way to California.
Yeah.
Right.
And remember, she got to a speaking engagement. And remember, she got speaking engagements all over. But here's the thing, Jonathan, that you said that. I think the thing that, well, Chairman, you did the teaching, so that helped. But I think what we had to understand is when we were at the Board of Ed meeting, and the board members, they were kind of like they were not welcoming to Marilyn Zuniga as a teacher, the union members. But when you spoke to them one-on-one, they were scared because they were getting threatened by the FOP. Now that's the part that you getting police threatening you. That's the part you should have been upset about. Not because a teacher wants to educate somebody about a saying or the students threatening teachers, but the police threatening you. That right there, therein lies the oxymoron that they were not fed up. They were not more upset about a police threatening them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other good thing that the other positive characteristic of that many faceted struggle was the Latino Black unity. Marilyn Zuniga is not an African American. She's not an African. She is a Latino woman. And she took it upon herself to educate Black and Latino children in her classroom about Mumia Abu-Jamal. And Black people and Latinos came together from not just from Orange, but from the New York metropolitan area. We have members that came out of New York that are Latino to support Marilyn. And I think that, Donna, you hit on something. There's lose-lose and there's lose-win. We were not successful in getting the board to retain Marilyn, but it was a struggle, and we raised so much consciousness, made so many people in New Jersey who were not aware of who Mumia Abu-Jamal was. By the time that struggle was over, a whole lot of people in New Jersey knew the names of Mumia Abu-Jamal and Marilyn Zuniga. And yes, the NJEA did not come to her support adequately. And I would say, somewhat amicable relations with the NJEA, but I have to say, and will always say, that they did not give Maryland adequate support. But at the same time, you have to realize the entire system was lined up to destroy that woman.
Right.
And the fact that she was able to get out and in fact start her career afresh and in even more positive way, I think is a testament to the level of struggle and the proper guidance and leadership that we got from Dr. Fernandez.
And Chairman, I'll take a note from you. You'll pull a scripture out quick. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Then what they meant to destroy that woman became a stepping stone that now everybody knows Marilyn Zuniga's name. And that was something that I was really amazed at. But also, I remember one of my union friends said, Donna, nobody complains when they teach about Santa Claus. Why would they complain? So you had to begin.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, and think about that. But we were forever educated and our minds were open as a result of the Marilyn Zuniga case.
And Dr. Fernandez, before you go, are you still with us, Dr. Fernandez?
I'm with you. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Before you go, I want to call your attention to an article that came out in a media outlet here in Jersey called the New Jersey Monitor. And this article came out a week ago. Activists troubled that New Jersey cities sought DEA surveillance of 2020 protests. And this article discusses how local municipalities here in Essex County spied on organizations that were engaged in protests to demand justice for George Floyd and other victims.
And did you say it was DEA?
The title is Activists Troubled That New Jersey Cities Sought DEA. That's the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Exactly.
Surveillance of 2020 protests. And my concern is that this surveillance may not have ceased, that the surveillance may have been ongoing.
Oh.
And I'm concerned that POP may have also been the target of this surveillance.
Oh, absolutely. It's ongoing. It was deepened. It was legitimized, the surveillance. It encouraged white supremacists to also go after demonstrators. And the question is, why the DEA? This is more criminalization.
That's right.
This is about criminalizing protest.
That's right.
This is about finding a way to frame people who were resisting. Thank you so very much for calling our attention to that article. I just want to say before I sign off that Larry Hamm was the anchor of this resistance against the firing of Marilyn Zuniga. And what I discovered was that your town has one of the most important and most incredible orators in the United States, and his name is Larry Hamm. I mean, give Larry Hamm a mic, and you've got an audience who's willing to listen for more than 2 hours. Larry Hamm, one of the most incredible orators in American society today.
You're not trying to say I'm long-winded on the slide, are you?
No, I'm trying to say that you are fueled by the Black radical tradition. You've been trained in that tradition, and our tradition produces phenomenal orators. And you're one of those important ones that we need to raise up in this period.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandez.
And thank you for carrying that tradition, right? Because that's the tradition that clarifies, that inspires, that gives one a moral assignment. It's a tradition that we need more of. So thank you for carrying it.
Thank you. And that comes from years of listening to Malcolm X records, Dr. Martin Luther King records, and attending the Black church when I and listening to Black preachers when I was a youth, and of course the tutelage that I received from the father of the Black Arts movement in Newark, New Jersey, Amir Baraka.
Right.
And thank you, Dr. Fernandez. And as we transition, Chairman Hamm, I remember you gave us a discussion about public speaking, and you spoke just about that, how you learned how to hold the attention of an audience. And it was from, you just mentioned it, where your classrooms were, whether it was Malcolm X, the Black church, or Amiri Baraka. But I remember you talking to us that it wasn't always like that.
No,
you had to learn, whether it's cadences or different things that you had to learn. I remember you told us that.
Amiri Baraka was the master orator. Oh my God. When I heard him the first time when I was a junior at Arts High School, he came and spoke to a selected audience. They would not let him address the entire school in an assembly. He only spoke to members. He was only permitted to speak to members of the student council. And that was in about February of 1970. It was after the first teachers' strike in Newark in 1970. There were two, one in 70 and one in 71. And I was a junior at Arts High then. And from that moment forward, I was just enthralled. Enthralled doesn't begin to describe the admiration. I came off of 12th Street. I saw, the devastation of the Black community. I had never seen a man speak like a living man speak like Amiri Baraka spoke. And it left an indelible imprint on my brain ever since. And his son is just like it. Make no mistake about it. Roz is just like Amiri and is as great an orator also.
Well, we're recording history here. Thank you.
No, and thank you as well. When you're talking about this history, like, first of all, I can't wait to read your autobiography when it comes out. I'm patiently looking forward to it because I think it's important.
Point of information, Johanna, the demo, that's his African name, mentioned that the teachers union betrayed Marilyn Zuniga, but the representative for the Newark Teachers Union, and Ned Alston, who's Jonathan's big sister, is writing Larry's autobiography. So we're looking forward to that. He's got to sit down with her and let her finish, but he's too busy running around walking 67 miles like he's 27 years old.
Do we have a title for that biography? Does it have a title?
You have one? Let's hear your title.
America's leading orator.
Oh, Lord.
Listen, I think you're the best kept secret in oration in this country and Black leadership.
Sister,
we will get that right over to Annette.
If you keep this up, I'm going to have to hang up the phone.
and hopefully will not be a secret for long. And like this walk that you did from Newark to Trenton, from Newark, New Jersey, all the way to Trenton.
Montclair to Newark, from Montclair to Trenton.
Oh, I'm sorry, from Montclair. Montclair through Newark to Trenton.
Yes.
I'm sorry for taking up. I'm sorry for not giving you credit for like 5 extra miles, right? But from Montclair to Newark to Trenton. Well, first, how do you feel?
Well, I feel good. I had injured my leg on the first day, and when we get to a serious summation of the march, I'm going to say one mistake was we did the greatest distance on the first day, which was 13 miles. We had done that before, but when we had done it before, it was 20 years ago, and some of us are deceived into thinking that we got the same body today that we had 20 years ago. you know, and so I hurt my leg on the first day, but I limped through the rest of it. First, the thing I need to say is that I didn't walk alone. There were folk when we started out the march. There were about almost 100 people that started in Montclair, and we always had a good crew, somewhere between 15 and 20. Most days, there were a couple of days when it got small. It got down to 9 or 10, 8, 9, 10. But when we finished up in Trenton, between the people who met us and the people that walked with us, we finished up with about 50 people in Trenton, New Jersey. So I didn't walk alone. There were sisters like Salima Hadi, who walked every day, and Holly Cooper that walked every day. You know, and I need to say the majority of the people on the Long March were women. And that should be recorded, you know, and people should bear witness to that.
Yeah, that's right.
That sisters were in the majority on this march, but it was a brother, Steve Young from Atlantic City, who led the march. He came up from Atlantic City and stayed up here. He told me, he said, "I'm not going to let you do this alone." And he carried the lead banner every day for the 9 days. We did 67 miles over 9 days. So
Steve Young is
whenever you refer to it, don't say Larry Hamm's march, because I didn't march alone. In fact, if I had been by myself, I probably would have quit. I also need to mention that 91-year-old Reverend Herbert Daughtry joined us on 2 days. Yes, the day that we were in
Brunswick
was Kendall Park. He joined us that day, Kendall Park to Princeton, and he joined us again on the last day from Lawrenceville to Princeton. That man, 91 years old, and he put in some miles with us. And let me tell you, he talked the whole time.
Nice.
Man, look, and I enjoyed it. You know, when you got somebody with you, they could carry conversation the whole way. It makes the miles go fast, you know. But it was great. And not only marchers, we had a support team on the ground. You know, Baba Zaid Muhammad was key in turn. We got a lot of press on that march. We didn't get a lot of TV, but we got News 12 and I think WNBC, but we got a lot of written press on that. And in large part, Zaid Muhammad was responsible for that. And also Danielle Carpita. If you just Google People's Organization for Progress, you'll see about 12 different articles. Almost in every town we went through, local press came out and covered us, you know. And the intention of this march was to keep public attention on the issue of police brutality, which we did, and on the need to pass that bill, the Police Review Board with subpoena power bill, which we did. So I think the march, you know, was a success. You know, it did achieve what it was intended to achieve. So it was good. And I want to thank everybody that helped to make it happen.
I want to also hold up at the fact that when you got into the Woodbridge area, I believe it was the Insider. The Insider follows you closely, and that's a good thing. Right? They spotlighted the fact that Speaker of the House Craig Coughlin is one of the reasons why that bill hasn't been put up for vote, right? And so,
right.
so that was indeed, even before the march was finished, that was one of the most important highlights about why the whole march was important in the first place, because we got some jive elected officials trying to hold back the hand of history. We're not going to let them do that.
So really, Coughlin is just not letting the bill come to
He's not alone, but he just happened to be going through his territory, so they spotlighted him, and they were correct to do that.
Has any of them commented, the people who are holding the bill hostage?
Well, they've commented when asked about it by the press. Initially, before the march, they were saying like no comment. But if you go back and you look at some of the articles appeared, as Brother Zaid just mentioned, Insider, and we didn't even plan this. I didn't know Woodbridge was in Coughlin's district. We didn't go through the township of Woodbridge. Well, yes, we did. We went through the township, but not the city of Woodbridge, because like I learned a lot about New Jersey like Island and Avenel, which we would look at as towns, they're actually part of Woodbridge. So Route 27 took us through Woodbridge Township, so to speak, but not Woodbridge proper. And I didn't know that was Coughlin's district. And when Max Pizarro from Inside NJ, he got out his car and marched with us and interviewed myself and others that were in the march along the way. And that was good because that was his district. My message to him was post the bill.
Exactly.
What they're trying to do now, they're trying to hold the bill back so they can water it down and make it something that we would despise, that we would utterly despise. That's what they're trying to do now. And we have to demand that the bill be passed in as close to the original bill as is possible, because they're going to be put in a position where they're going to say, okay, we got to pass something, but let's pass something that's going to have the opposite effect that they want to have.
Right.
Like for instance, a provision that the police review board can't even review a case for 120 days. And what is that?
Right.
That's like saying you can't go to internal affairs in the police department until 120 days after the incident has occurred. 120 days, witnesses forget what happened. Documents get lost.
And they know it. There's a whole show called The First 48.
That's right. And they know it.
The whole show is called The First 48. And they're like,
we need 120 hours. Days. Right. In their contracts, they don't have to say anything for 48 hours. Tell them about that bill on the body cams, Zaid.
Well, Bill, that's totally different. That while they were blocking the Civilian Review Board bill from going to the Senate and the Assembly for a vote, both houses, with their arms being twisted behind their backs like they were being handcuffed by the Fraternal Order of Police, pushed this backwards bill that said that police officers can look at their body cam footage to explain why they beat the hell out of somebody on their reports. It makes a mockery of the whole function of having body cam bills, right? But they almost all of them, there are 4 reps in the state legislature that voted against that, right? Got to shout out Brittany Timberlake. I got to shout out Senator Ronald Rice. Got to shout out Nina Gill. And I got to shout out Loretta Weinberg, retiring from Bergen County. They were the only ones that voted against that. Every last black, white, brown, all Democrats and Republicans all voted for that backwards behind bill. Murphy hasn't touched it yet. And on our way to the lame duck session of the legislature, we're telling him to veto that, and the demand that leadership in both houses gives him some real reform bills, including our CCRB bill the way we want.
Yeah, I remember when we had the ACLU person on who broke that down and basically said you're engaging, like at the point that you allow them to review body cam in order to make their testimonies, you are literally engaging in witness tampering. You are distorting, you are allowing them to recreate a story and recreate and reframe the story from a perspective, because they'll see things on the body camera that they might not have noticed the first time. And that becomes a part of their story, and they present it like it was part of their making of a calculation when it wasn't, right? So it really allows them to lie. And the way she explained it was so simple that it's like, wait, this is ridiculous to be able to review the body cam footage before you write your report, because the body cam footage is a check. It is not supposed to be part of how you will craft an alibi.
Exactly.
And Chairman, going back to the march on the days, what surprised you the most going through the different municipality? What was your aha moment, or what was an eye opener, on the several days? Was there anything new that you learned?
Well, first of all, let me give some shout outs. And I know some people might find this unusual, and some people might even be abhorred by what I'm getting ready to say. But I was surprised at the level of police support that we got going through we went through 28 municipalities 28 cities, towns, villages, and boroughs. And in almost all of those 28, let me put it this way. First and foremost, Mayor Baraka sent a police escort. And we did not request this. We didn't request any of this from anyone. We said we're having a march. Now, I did inform certain police departments that we're coming through their towns. You know, that's my responsibility, having the safety and welfare of those with me. You know, I let the police know we're coming through, but I did not ever ask any mayor or any police director for any police escort. Starting with the city of Newark, the city of Newark had us escorted by Newark police from Montclair to Trenton. And I've never heard of such a thing in all my life. And I've been in a lot of protests, you know, in all my life. Mayor Baraka sent a police escort that went with us every day for we did 6 to 8 miles, sometimes 10 miles a day. And they were with us the whole time. And then the majority of cities sent police to also work as co-escorts with the Newark police. Man, one time we had so many police, it looked like the president was in town. I was like shaking my head, you know. But I want to say thank you. Thank you to Mayor Baraka. Thank you to those other mayors that thought it a good thing to escort us. It's better to have it than not to have it, because there were a few incidents where, you know, once we got down below New Brunswick, you know, we got into Trump territory, and Trump people in their cars, some of them were saying nasty things to us. And I'm sure that if we hadn't had a police escort, we would have had some confrontations along the way. We had no confrontations. The other thing I was surprised about was the consistent support we got from people in just about every town we went through. You know how we stand out there in the front of the federal building and people every Monday, Justice Monday, and people blow their horns in support? People were driving by all up and down the 67 miles. People were driving by, honking their horns, throwing their fists out the car window. And that kind of surprised me. It didn't surprise me like, you know, up here in Newark, Hillside, and other places. But when we got down in there, where you feel like you're not even in New Jersey no more, you know, we still got support. And from white people as well as black people. From white people as well as black. In fact, just about all races of people at some point, you know, were giving us support. And I was also surprised by, in certain towns, the mayor was there to greet us. You know, like in Highland Park. Who would have guessed? But maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, because Highland Park was the hometown of one of the former leaders of the People's Organization for Progress, Vicky White. But this mayor was not mayor. The current mayor was not mayor when Vicky was alive.
Some serious work in Highland Park right now.
Right, and was active. But the mayor and council members in Orange, the mayor of East Orange. Now, check this out. The mayor of East Orange walked with us from East Orange to Irvington.
Mayor Green. Okay, Mayor Green.
Yes, it did.
That's right, Mayor Green. He walked. He in fact, he greeted us on the steps, had his own little rally on the steps of City Hall. And when we were ready to go, he said, "I'm marching with you." And when we got to Irvington, we were greeted by Mayor Boss. And you know, not all the towns did, not a majority of the towns did this, but many of the towns, you know, some of the elected officials came, greeted us. Like in Hillside, the mayor Bertrice, who's actually running for re-election now, and they're trying to get her, their reactionary forces trying to get her out of her seat. She greeted us with a whole delegation of people. They just organized their first chapter, first ever in the history of Hillside chapter of the NAACP. And they had all the chapter members there. She was there, and she greeted us at the park when we got in the Hillside. So, you know, it was a real eye-opening experience. It was the longest march that the People's Organization for Progress ever has, the longest march I've ever been on, a 9-day march. And I'm glad we did it. Some people were like, well, you should wait, when you could plan it better. I'm going to say something. Sometimes, you have to move. You have to let intuition take control.
Right.
And that thing happened so effortlessly that it must have been like, I try not to give into metaphysics, but I almost feel like saying it was like it had to happen. I mean, there were no problems. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was attacked. Nobody got hit by a car. Nobody tried to run their cars into us like the racists did down there when they killed Heather Heyer down there in Charlottesville. A big problem, a big concern was because we didn't stay out on the march route. Like, we would march out, 8 miles, and then we would come back home and then come back to where we stopped the day before and start again for the next leg of the march. Now, that's a big logistical issue. Let me tell you something. That thing happened seamlessly. People volunteered to give us rides. They took us home. They took us back to where we had to start again. I was just amazed at how effortlessly, it happened. I just had a feeling that if we had done all this super planning, we probably had all these problems, But because the group was of a smaller size, I guess it was more manageable. But we got back and forth every day, all the way out to Trenton. We got back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We would always have enough cars to get people back home, back to the starting point for the next day. It was amazing. And then the press, we had press come out that marched with us. Like the article I mentioned to you, that same woman that wrote the article on the DEA surveillance, she wrote an article on the march. And she actually marched. Where did she meet us at? She met us in Edison. She met us in Edison, and she marched with us that day when we marched from Edison to Highland Park. And so it was a wonderful experience. And then our spirits were really lifted when Reverend Daughtry came to march, because Reverend Daughtry is a hero and an icon. In fact, when we got into Trenton, when we got close to the State House, we were chanting, Herbert Daughtry, live like him, dare to struggle, dare to win. That man was marching with us at 91 years old. You know how many marches he's been on in his life? And I didn't call him. I didn't call Daughtry and ask Daughtry to come, Reverend Daughtry, because I know him, but I didn't call him from New York, ask him to come. He read about it, heard about it. He said, I'm coming out to join you. And he did. He came out on 2 days of that march, came from New York, so it was wonderful. And I really, again, want to thank Brother Zaid, because he did such a remarkable job with the press. We got a lot. All you have to do is Google People's Organization for Progress, and then hit the news button.
Long March for Justice.
All these articles come out. All these articles will come up.
Well, I just wish I could have participated. He's.
You did participate.
You retired. I'm just tired because I'm working 2 jobs.
I'm retired. You just tired.
Listen, one of the things I want to lift up is that I'm glad that you reconfigured it to do it on a daily basis, because that allowed so many other people to participate who ordinarily wouldn't have been able to do it. So it indeed became what we were kind of looking at as a walk, or maybe you and Steve and a couple other folks genuinely became a march.
Right.
Folks of all stripes, all ages, all backgrounds. Tyrone Lockett on crutches. Right?
Tyrone
Hallie just got a foot out of a boot.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Of course, we talked about Reverend Daughtry, and Daughtry did put in miles. He didn't just walk for a few minutes. He put in several miles in his 90s. It's an incredible story. It became an incredible story.
And one of the people watching the show just put on the chat about the clergy. Yes, we got big support from the Clergy Patrol of Newark. In fact, it was the
They the ones
clergy.
that did the escort.
Right. It was the clergy patrol that came in and was our escort, not the regular police, but on the last day of the march, it was the clergy, because the last day of the march, Biden was in town. So all the regular police had to cover Biden, right? So the clergy patrol came in and escorted us all the way into Trenton. They came from Newark to Lawrenceville, and they escorted us from Lawrenceville to Princeton, which was from Lawrenceville to Trenton, which was 9 miles. And by the way, when we stopped in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, the former retired pastor of Bethany Baptist Church, Reverend Moses William Howard, M. William Howard. People don't know what the M is. The M stands for Moses.
Yeah.
Reverend Howard.
That fits in.
Right. Reverend Howard met us and greeted us with other people from Lawrenceville when we got to Lawrenceville, But yes, I want to thank the clergy patrol for their support, and for everybody that had a hand. When events like this happen, is a whole lot of hands involved and a whole lot of feet, not just the feet of the people who are marching, but the people who are in support groups, on the ground, preparing the way. There were people like the sister, the NAACP leader in Rahway, New Jersey. She got the local press out for us because they weren't in the loop, and she got them in the loop, and we produced an article on it. So everybody had a hand in it, from well-wishers who couldn't march at all to those who actually did the marching. But it was good, and it was a learning experience, because I'm sure we're going to have to do similar things in the future. We are facing, brothers and sisters, a crisis of unprecedented proportions right now. People, it's kind of like COVID, because like we're not India. In India, people they die on the street. So you can see the impact of COVID. Here, people die in the hospital and their bodies are put in the morgue. So you don't know that this is the worst pandemic we ever had. Like, we're going to have 1 million people dead by March of next year, but we're facing a political pandemic. The forces of racism and fascism, they are on the move. There was an attempted violent coup in this country. And if you don't believe it, because people think we engage in left-wing hyperbole, read Woodward and Costa's book that just came out, titled Peril. They describe in detail, with the people who were involved, how these people planned and attempted to execute a violent takeover of the United States government. Read that book by Costa and Woodward. This is very important. You got to understand what's going down. And it ain't over. You think it's over? You know what someone once said? They said a failed coup is a dress rehearsal. So they had a failed coup. They get back together. They sum up their mistakes and they make another attempt. They attempted to kidnap and execute the governor of Michigan. They attempted a violent takeover of the Capitol building so that they could stop the counting of the electoral votes and stop the seating of the president who actually won the election, to replace him with the one that didn't win the election. And this is unprecedented. We haven't seen this type situation since the Civil War, since the Tilden Hayes
Tilden Compromise
episode. It's innocuously titled the Tilden Hayes Compromise. Do you know that Tilden actually won the popular vote and the electoral vote?
Wow.
I always thought that he won one and the other one. No, Tilden won both. And it was only because some states had not sent electors. That was the sticking point. And that was the point that led to the compromise. But here we have a situation where a minority, the minority that lost the election, had a plan and attempted to execute a plan to take over. And they are not finished. These people are open. Just look at the recent polls that are coming out. People who say we need a civil war, these fascists, who want to secede from the Union, who want to split the United States again. It's like 1858 out here. I'm sorry. I see my brother
that's why we
Rhino,
got you.
so I know it's time for me to shut up.
Well, here's the thing. We are going to have to. Hopefully you will stay in this section as well.
Yeah.
But we're going to have you back, because I always like it when you and Rhino start talking. It's always
yes.
good. And also, we're going to make sure that we have you back just to talk about that Civil War thing. Like I said, the whole section just on that.
And you know what? And John, I think we need to reconvene that panel where it's Chairman Hamm, Minister Hawk, and when we talk about this Civil War, because it's when I just seen people go out talking about who is going to vote on Tuesday, and people are just I don't know, maybe, and they're really not realizing how serious we are in this time, and and you even brought it up, Jonathan, how in these little states, how they're making laws so they can overturn votes. So they're doing it state by state by state by state. So yeah, we need to
everybody go vote on Tuesday.
That's
go
right.
vote
actually,
on Tuesday.
I'm saying no. Vote today and tomorrow.
That's right. We got
vote
early
today. Vote tomorrow. Vote Sunday. Right?
Yes.
Because I voted 2 days ago. Ago. It was so smooth. Question before we start the next segment. Rhino, Larry Hamm, did he vote yet?
No, I'm voting on
voted
Tuesday.
early.
I'm not gonna vote early. I'm voting Tuesday.
I voted early.
You voted already, Rhino?
Yeah.
It was easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what.
And real quick, Jonathan, where'd you vote at?
Essex County parking lot, the new garage they built. They have
So you went down
really
to
nice
the
rooms
county.
for the voting thing.
And Rhino, where'd you vote at?
I sent in the ballot.
Okay, you did the mail-in.
Mail-in.
Okay, got you. All right, Rhino, what's new in hip hop? Right, because we don't have to ask Chairman who he listened to. He listened to.
We already know Gil Scott. We already know
who he listening to, Rhino. Who's he listening to, Rhino?
Gil Scott Heron, man, all day.
Okay, all right.
But,
let me say real quick. It's also the anniversary of Stevie Wonder's album "Songs in the Key of Light," which is one of the great albums of all time. I'm sorry, Rhino. I'm sorry.
Nah, you good. You good. That's one of the next shirts I got to get too.
Rhino, kick it off with Fetty Wap being locked up. Oh my gosh, you heard the clerk.
Oh man, I heard that real quick. I didn't even get all of the details on that, so I didn't even have that to throw in there. But you threw it in there. Yeah, Fetty Wap got bagged, man. I don't know the whole story on that, but that's Jersey right there. So we gotta put our prayers in for the brother. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to start off, John, I almost never see you with a hat on. So it was crazy when I first came on and I saw you with the Kango on, you know what I'm saying? But you gave me a great segue because, if you remember Kango Kid from UTFO, from Roxanne fame, he's been fighting cancer for some time now.
Oh, man.
So he just recently went in for surgery, and we just want to give our prayers and positive energies out to Kango Kid for a positive surgery, a successful surgery, and a speedy recovery at that. Also in hip hop health news, Benny the Butcher from Griselda is back in the hospital. He's been sick for a while. They said it's non-COVID related, but he's definitely back in the hospital. So we want to send our prayers and positive energies and love to Benny the Butcher as well, as far as a speedy recovery. Next on the list I got, there was a rapper from, I believe he's from Jersey. Every time I seen him, he was at a Jersey hip hop event. He was on the mic. He was doing this thing. His brother name, well, it's a Jewish Caucasian MC rapper from out here named Kosher Dills. Now, right after the Knicks won in New York City at Madison Square, he was outside. I guess he was, trying to make a little change or whatever, and he was outside freestyling in front of Madison Square Garden. And who comes up to Kosher Dills and starts freestyling with him is Fat Joe. So Fat Joe comes out and he sees Kosher Dills. He's out there, doing his thing, just on the street, you know what I'm saying, in front of MSG. And, Fat Joe gets up, he grabs the mic and starts freestyling with him. Now, I've seen footage of something like this very similar with Common. Common did this one time where there was a kid outside. He was young. He was just rapping. He was real good freestyling off the heads, picking out whatever he saw in front of him. And then Common happened to be walking past and then jumped into the freestyle with him, and it became a whole moment right there. So big ups to Fat Joe for doing that, because like I said, I've personally seen this kid Kosher Dills for years out here in Jersey at different events. And he's always been a heavy lyricist, you know what I mean? But just for him to have that moment with Fat Joe, that's big ups, man. So much love to Fat Joe and to Kosher Dills, man. I know that was a moment for him. Today also marks the anniversary of Organized Confusion's self-titled debut album, Organized Confusion, which came out 30 years ago today. On this album, we're talking about Prince Poe and Pharoah Monch. Pharoah Monch has blown up through, some wondrous things on his own as a solo artist. He's now with a band called 13, where they do some like rockish kind of hip hop. But in the beginning, it was Pharoah Monch and Prince Poe coming out of Southside Queens, and they put out Organized Confusion, their first debut album, which featured OC from I believe OC is from Brooklyn, and they had hits like Fudge Pudge, Who Stole the Last Piece of Chicken, one of my favorites, which was Releasing Hypnotical Gases, Prisoners of War. I mean, you really got to listen to these guys. When they first came out, they were, like I said, they were coming out of Southside Queens, but they had a real metaphysical approach to how they were attacking lyrics and concepts and stuff like that. And it was real scientific, you know what I mean? They really got into their lyrics. So big ups to Organized Confusion. Also, 30 years ago today, Ice Cube, Death Certificate. That was my favorite Ice Cube album still to this day.
Yeah,
30 years ago.
Yeah, that was the album that came out after America's Most Wanted, and this is really when he really showed his conversion into conscious hip hop. And
Khalid is on that too, right?
Right, Khalid is on there. Yeah, he was getting, Cube got down with. He was basically getting down with Nation of Islam at that time through Public Enemy.
Yeah,
yeah. So this was my favorite album by.
And that's Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I ain't talking about DJ Khaled, y'all.
That's right. We're talking about that's right. Not DJ Khaled. Khalid Muhammad. Yeah, but so 30 years ago, man, Ice Cube dropped Death Certificate. I mean, this was, he was still shooting shots.
Was that the Easy Eat This? Was
that
the
No Vaseline?
Yeah.
No Vaseline.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
No
Oh
Vaseline.
my
is
gosh,
one of the-
Jonathan,
That's one of the most terrible diss records of all time. That was No Vaseline.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
Can I tell you,
I'll
listened
never
to that.
have dinner with the president. I never. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And he went in on that album. I just have, how you have different ears today than when you was younger. I listened to that. I was like, yo, Ice Cube was really pissed off, huh?
Yeah, he was not
Hey,
playing.
God.
He was not playing on
He
that.
left it-
That was my
He
favorite.
left it all in the studio that day. I was
Yes.
like, woo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was not
Oh.
playing, man. He on the album cover, he had the toe tag that said Uncle Sam on it.
That's right.
Right.
That's
man.
right.
Oh, that was
I was
deep,
like,
man.
whoa.
Yeah, Cube was the man at that time. That was
Yeah,
Cube.
that's
Like
30
peak.
years ago. My goodness.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? 30 years, man. 30 years.
Yeah, it would be interesting if I would love to, Rhino, if we seen an interview for him to reflect on today, how, because I think at the end, him and Eazy-E, they did, but it was just to be so raw and then just to leave it in the studio. That was something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm always marveling every time I see Ice Cube and like, are we here yet? And then look at his early days and from Death Certificate to Are We Here Yet? I mean, come on, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's a whole growing up kind of phase there. Like I'm talking about the family friendly movies.
Yeah.
that Ice Cube is known for now.
It's
like
true.
young kids would be like, Ice Cube, the person in the Family Friendly movies, like the person. Are we here yet? Right? Yeah. The goofy dad, hilarious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like he made
Rhino,
the switch, man. He went from gangster to grandpa.
Yeah, he grew up.
Gangster to grandpa.
What you say?
I say he grew up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
real. Yeah, he grew up for real, right in front of everybody's eyes. Right, he grew up. He transformed. He evolved and developed. So big ups to Ice Cube. One last one because I know it's just about that time. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of Big Daddy Kane's Taste of Chocolate album, which came out in 1990. This is when he was like, he was Big Daddy Kane. He was beyond his peak at this point. He was reaching other heights, man. Also, it's also the anniversary of Moni Love's Down to Earth album, which came out in 1990 of tomorrow. Moni Love coming out of UK. She got down with native tongue.
Where's she at in the middle? Where's she at?
Yeah, Moni in the middle. That's right. So she got down with Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Queen Latifah. She had the big hit, Ladies First with Queen Latifah. Moni Love, and she still looks incredible today. She hasn't aged at all. Like if you see Moni Love today, she has not aged, not a single day. But big ups to Moni Love. She's a real hip hopper, man. A lot of people don't really give full respect to people coming out of the UK that's down with hip hop, but that's because they don't understand. They don't know what they know on that side of the water. You know what I'm saying? But she's full-fledged hip hop to this day. She's full-fledged hip hop to the bone, and I just want to salute Moni Love. Big ups to Moni Love. And also tomorrow, this is the last one. Tomorrow marks I hate to say the anniversary. It marks the anniversary of our losing the great legendary Jam Master Jay of Run DMC. Yeah, we lost Jam Master Jay on the 30th of 2002, October of 2002.
That's almost
Jam Master Jay.
Wow.
Crazy.
And it's still unsolved, right?
Nah, supposedly it's solved. They found two of the people that were involved in his shooting, and it's pretty much been closed since then. But and you can find I think they still have it on Netflix or something like that, where you can see the documentary. Yeah. And they have a new story of how they found who killed Jam Master Jay. So that was a huge loss.
And Dick Wolf did it on Law and Order. He did it on Law and Order too. They did Law and Order one of it.
Wow. Yeah, but so rest in peace, Jam Master Jay. Big ups to Run and DMC. And that's what I got, y'all. Also, real quick, I want to say big ups to my OGV family. That's what the shirt is. Operation Good Vibes. That's what I was doing earlier today. We had a big event with Rock and Soul Records in New York City, which is a classic, legendary record store that I used to shop at since I was like 14. Me and my boys used to shop at Rock and Soul since I was 14. So they put together like a little music event.
Where was Rock and Soul at?
Rock and Soul was down on 34th Street, right there on 34th Street. We used to come 34th Street and 7th, not right like across the street from Madison Square.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's right around there. So we had a big event, Rock and Soul. It was me, my brother DJ R Train, Jersey's own Max Jerome NJ, Jersey's own Malik Mania. Well, Malik Mania wasn't down, but he's down with OGV. But he wasn't with the lineup today. But also my man DJ Coach K. The four of us, we did our thing today on Twitch.tv for Rock and Soul Records. So big up Rock and Soul Records and my OGV family. And check me out tomorrow on Twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ at 3 p.m. for the shake up with CMZ at 3.
Rhino, anything with the rap the vote? Anything with the rap community and voting? Anything?
I haven't heard much. Things have been real quiet. Things have been real quiet. I mean, I have seen I can't figure the names right now. I have seen a couple of rappers that were speaking on it and just trying to push the vote, but it's been kind of quiet on my end. I haven't really heard a whole lot. Okay. So I'm hoping that's not a sign though. You know what I mean?
Right. And I guess maybe it's an off-year election and people get excited in the presidency, and people have to do that. But we have reached the end of this. I know that.
Let me say in closing, Jonathan, we got to stop saying things. It's never off for your voting in our community. We need to
I get it.
often.
I get it.
Just wanted to say in closing that Deborah Smith Gregory said people who normally have issues with voting need to get out and vote early. And Diane from POP want us to know that the congressional and legislative redistricting process is underway. The third public hearing is virtual, and we'll post it on the page of All Politics Are Local.
That's excellent, right? Because that's always important. But we are reaching the end for tonight. So I would like to thank all our guests that came out. And this thing dedicated to early voting. I'm glad we're ending on that too. Vote tomorrow. Vote on Sunday. Sunday it closes at 6. Tomorrow, what time does early voting close?
Not the time you said.
I know I got it wrong.
You like
Friday night.
Jonathan was like, you can vote for 24 hours. Red light district. No.
Right. So what time does it start?
You was going in. You were amped up.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, oh, it's like a party. Yeah, it's like from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So
shout out to our deputy clerk, Garnett Hill. She was so fun. She's like, let me correct him. She's like,
please, thank you. I'm just here. I'm here suppressing the vote. I'm here suppressing the vote.
Shout out to our deputy.
Tomorrow, reparations rally, 10:30 in the morning at Saint somebody's church. So I thought I had it in front of me. And the dean was going to be one of the speakers. St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Perth Amboy. That's near the historical marker where our ancestors were brought in for slavery. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right.
Say the word reparations.
And souls to the poll on Sunday at Weekway Park.
Yep, souls to the polls. Get there, vote early. But don't wait till Tuesday. All right. Well, I'll see you next week. Be careful, be safe, and vote.
Don't stop.
Vote. Number one.
Number one.